Our story begins a little earlier than our time in the world of Arl, in the Grand Royal Castle. In the Great Throne Hall, the herald loudly announced the arrival of Heisenmarquis Elvil. The mighty Duke carefully watches the scene, and a look of recognition appears on his stern face. He sees a familiar figure approaching. He mockingly brushed off the rumors, as if Al Vale were offended by exile to the old capital. He cynically wonders whether that old grievance is really the cause of the alleged treacherous conspiracy. Now standing before the throne, before Alvil insists, he never held a grudge and never contemplated rebellion. With a piercing gaze, he challenges the king let him watch him if he still suspects. The king calmed Heisen, assuring that he never doubted his loyalty and is sincerely grateful to him. Alvil does not believe him, bitterly lamenting that the king has probably already received a secret message. He cast a malicious look at the court, cursing the irresponsible nobles for spreading vile rumors. He sadly recalls the bond with his twin, who once seemed unbreakable to him. Looking at the distant throne, he felt how great the distance had become between him and his brother. A sharp sound effect signals the end of the tense audience. Alvil looked at his loyal knight Adamin and said decisively, "We are returning to our domains." Marcus's retinue sets off on a long journey home. A sturdy cart surrounded by armed soldiers in armor rumbled along the country road. Inside, Markil Vale and his knight Adam sat silently, immersed in quiet reflection. Alvil sighs wearily. How much longer can he endure the title of Grand Duke? A memory of youth emerges. He dreamed simply of leaving so that his brother would forgive him. Adam's voice broke the silence, anxiously calling his lord. Alvil turned to his knight and asked what was the matter. Adamant looks worried, repeating his lord's title. He asks if something is wrong, and I brush it off, attributing it to the usual capital fatigue. Alvil clutches his stomach, mumbling about hunger, then turns the question back. How was his knight? A soldier near the carriage shouted, "What happened?" Adamin opens the door and freezes. Before him on his knees stands a scout politely asking for forgiveness. The scout urgently reports, a suspicious building has been found which was not there during their previous journey. LVAL and Adamant looked outside. They were intrigued by the strange report. Adam asked to describe the unusual style of the building in more detail. The scout stammers, barely finding words, but insists, this is something they must see with their own eyes. Alvil ran his fingers over his mustache and deeply pondered this unfathomable mystery. He decisively confirms that about 2 months have passed since they set out. He thoughtfully considers, building a structure so quickly is impossible. He dismisses the idea that it could be a hut or a bandit's shelter in such an open, controlled area. He laughs at the thought that someone could build a farm here without his permission. Adamin agrees it is too dangerous here for such a flimsy shack. Hearing a strange noise and becoming interested, Alvil decides that this strange mystery is worth approaching closer. He resolutely says that he will go to see anyway, ignoring categorical objections and immediate protests due to danger. He jokingly brushed off his nighttime apprehensions, saying they would only observe from afar. Alvil asked what Adamant would do if he moved forward alone. As soon as danger arises, he gives a direct order to flee immediately without hesitation. Alvil's facial features hardened with determination. He is preparing to move forward. With a resolute "let's go," he leads his faithful knight into the unknown. The endless cloudy sky fills the frame, and the air is filled with tension. Alvil's face is a mask of pure, genuine shock. In front of them on the clearing grew a modern Japanese store completely alien to their world. Stone, unbreakable stairs, and stunned distrust. The mind could not comprehend this impossible sight. Alvil directs his nighttime attention to the incredible features of the building. He gazes enchantedly at the door, a single flawless sheet of glass, like a creation of the gods themselves. He points to an extraordinarily realistic model of noodles in the display window. His gaze is fixed on a large sign written in a mysterious but beautiful font. He hears strange music and wonders if it is a magical recording from a distant land. He notices how strange this situation is, and Adamant can only agree. Alvil calls Adam, but again his attention is distracted by something else. The knight, always alert, warns its master, do not enter that mysterious building. Avalon insists, first we must investigate what is happening here. Suddenly he noticed movement and shouted to Adamant, there is a person inside. They notice the man's strange clothing and his firm assurance that he is unarmed. The man inside raises a bowl of noodles to his mouth. While he slurps his dish, Elvil and Adamant stand outside and watch, completely enchanted. They watch in fascination. The man is eating the very dish that was in the display case. The camera zooms in on the dish model and confirms, it is indeed KK Soba. Two mighty men froze, mesmerized by the simple, everyday scene. The shopkeeper finally finished the meal, drank the last drops of soup from the bowl. Alvil and Adamin stood still, completely captivated by that place. Stepping back, Elvil asks if this man seems dangerous, and Adamin says that at first glance no. Adamant notes that the man looks worn like a commoner. I decisively point my finger toward that mysterious shop. He says he is going inside and asks the man what is happening there. Adamant tries to protest, but still fears possible dangers inside. Alvil reveals his true intention. He wants to try the food and believes Adamant does too. Adam insists that they check for poison first, so Alvil tells him to conduct the investigation. Resolute, Alvil turns and walks to the entrance. He extends his hand, his palm is about to touch the glass door. Suddenly the scout rushes to the minterer, and Adamant loudly shouts a warning. In the scout's palm is a glowing orb, recognized as the gift of crisis detection. The diagram explains how orbs work: red danger, blue safety. A divine being with a loud and confident voice explains, gifts are powers given to humanity to fight demons. Alvil closes his eyes, calmly considering his scout's warning. He raises his orb, it glows evenly with a soothing blue light. He calmly tells Adam that everything is fine, and the scouts sigh with relief. Holding the shimmering blue orb, Alvil declares with complete confidence that the shop is safe. Adam and Chai have a lord who is frightening, but Alvil just waved it off. Alvil decisively steps forward, announcing he will go first despite Adam's protests. Adamant quickly orders his men to stay alert and be ready to storm the shop. The loyal knight follows his lord into a strange establishment. They froze in the doorway, carefully examining their new surroundings. Two men froze in shock as the doors slid shut by themselves. They allowed ask in surprise whether this expensive magical device was installed just to open the doors. Simple but extremely advanced technology caught the Grand Duke and his commander off guard and left them speechless. A small bell on the door rang, announcing their arrival. The shopkeeper lifts his head from the food and sees two formidable men at the threshold. Alvil looks intently as if asking, "Can I help you?" The seller shuddered at their sudden silent appearance. Alvil and Adamant continue to watch the young man closely, scrutinizing every movement. Alvil squints, his analytical mind carefully assessing the shopkeeper. A young man with a clipboard in his hands looks at them, and a nervous drop of sweat rolls down his forehead. He glanced down at the bowl from which he had just eaten. Alvil instantly understands. The man, although having unusual features, is actually a pure-blooded human. The shopkeeper, noticing that they were not just passing by, asked, "Are you customers?" Markilve and his knight Adamin stare at something off-screen, completely bewildered. Suddenly, shock realization flashed in the eyes of the young shopkeeper Yukido. Under the watchful, inquisitive gazes of the visitors, Yukido was covered with embarrassed sweat. With a nervous gesture, you could ask if they might be clients. I cast veiled glances at his knight before confirming it. Yes, they really are clients. A wave of professional relief washes over Yukido's face, and a shy smile appears on it. You could straighten his entire manner, turning it into clear confidence. Alvale and Adamant froze for a moment at his sudden transformation. With a sincere, casual bow, you could all greet them in his shop Daitsuji Soba. He explains that right now, he has only 2 items on the menu: KK and Morisoba. Two nobles were completely confused. Unfamiliar words threw them into total stupor. Alvil's face wrinkles in thought, his cheeks lightly reddening from embarrassment. He wonders aloud, what could this sober shop in the dish sober be? You can all ask if they have heard about Soba. Vale categorically says no. You might, thoughtfully realize that they know nothing about the signature dish of his world. With a bright, confident smile, he invites them to taste it, convinced that it is truly delicious. Alvil's stern face melted into a wide, boyish smile as he gladly accepted the offer. You could glance at the large retinue outside and understand, this meal is only for the 2 of them. Having taken their order, Alvil decides that they will both have cake soba. You politely bow, showing agreement, and gesture to invite them to a free table. 2 magnificent nobles approach the table, looking completely out of place. Behind the counter, Yukado holds his breath and watches as his first 2 strange visitors take their seats. Avalda Smith insisted to Adam and caution, just enjoy this experience. Adam and Size resign themselves to their master's impulsive decision to trust the strange shop. Alvil freezes in surprise when a glass of water full of ice is placed before him. Yukudo happily served them water, leaving 2 mighty men speechless. Alvil freezes in admiration, seeing ice cubes floating in clear water, an incredible luxury. You can happily inform them that the water is free and can be refilled as much as desired. The Great Duke's eyes bulged in complete disbelief at this unheard-of luxury. Alvil still cannot comprehend that even refilling this precious thing is free. In his head, he calculates the staggering price of ice, a treasure more expensive than many meals. The idea that such crystal-clear water with ice is served for free is simply madness. When Yukado returns to the kitchen, Alvil is still staring, enchanted by his glass. Unable to resist, Alvil drank the water in one big gulp, and that scared everyone even more. "Delicious," he exclaims, and Adamant hurriedly asks, "What are you doing?" Adamant reminds him that it needs to be checked for poison, but Alvil is already convinced. He enjoys the taste and says that this is top-quality water, pure, like a winter stream. Adamant is desperate. How is he supposed to test it now, but Alvil ignores him. The knight insists it cannot be safe here, but his protests are in vain. The 2 men exchanged a glance, their usual teasing momentarily ceased. Their argument breaks off when Yukito cheerfully returns with a tray, carrying her food. He places before them on a wooden tray a steaming bowl of soup, like dough. Adamant leaned over the ball, a tense, almost military analysis readable on his face. He notices a transparent, light brown broth in a tangle of thin grayish noodles. He notices a fine sprinkle of thinly sliced green vegetables, probably an aromatic garnish. He guesses that the dark, thin, paper-like covering must be edible seaweed. He comes to the conclusion, despite all the fine details, the dish impresses with its simplicity. Two nobles gaze into the steaming bowl, and the strange, wonderful smell enchants them. Alvil, a true gourmet, immediately senses this noodle is not made from wheat, but from some unknown grain. He notes with surprise that this culinary philosophy is foreign noodles should be served with sauce, not in soup. He is a prince who has tasted the cuisines of many countries, yet still cannot recognize this dish. Adamant noticed that there are no utensils and asked Yukito for a fork or spoon. Yukito explains that disposable chopsticks are used here and asks if his guests know how to use them. Adamant is completely confused by this word and cannot understand what ohashi means. Yukito demonstrates by smoothly pulling out one pair of chopsticks from the container. He holds the joined chopsticks and shows people how to separate them before use. The sight of simple wooden dining utensils simply stunned the two nobles. Yukito explains that food is taken by grasping it between two spread chopsticks. They cannot believe that ordinary wooden chopsticks are enough for eating. Vale suddenly realized, this is proof of a completely different culture unknown on their continent. He involuntarily comes to the conclusion, this young man is a traveler from a very distant land. While Adamant asks for a fork, Alvil decides to try using ohashi. Adamant eats with eats meanwhile Alvil amusingly struggles with unfamiliar chopsticks. The first attempts to grasp the noodles are clumsy, but he stubbornly does not give up. He giggles at his clumsiness, finding some special charm in the simple tools. Deciding to change tactics, he decides to taste the soup first. He raises the heavy ceramic bowl to his lips and carefully takes a sip of broth. As soon as the soup touched his tongue, his eyes opened wide in pure surprise. Taste a real explosion that instantly transports them both to a bright, lively underwater world. Alvil closed his eyes and savored the aroma, feeling the soft, perfectly balanced saltiness. He feels the soft, soothing warmth of the broth slowly spreading from his throat and sinking deep into his stomach. Holding the bowl reverently, he mentally tells himself, this is truly the pinnacle of culinary art. He recognizes the taste of the sea, but it lacks that usual unpleasant fishy note. The taste is crystal clear, as if you were lying by the flawlessly blue waters of the South Sea. Then he directs his gaze to the finely chopped green garnish. He is delighted the crispy and crunchy texture and the refreshing, slightly spicy taste. Now he understands the purpose of that tasty green vegetable seasoning. He and Ademen say in unison that the taste surpassed everything they could have imagined. After tasting the soup, Alvil announced that it was time to try the noodles. Refocusing, he manages to grab a small handful of noodles with chopsticks. He lifts the glistening noodles from the bowl and sucks them in with satisfaction. The noodles stretch in the air, dripping with thick, rich broth. The perfect portion of noodles is raised up ready for the first bite. He brings the noodles to his mouth and takes the first, decisive bite. He happily slurps them, fully embracing the foreign habit of eating this way. A new wave of flavor transports him to a quiet rural meadow, where a shepherd calmly grazes his flock. He cannot get enough of the dense, chewy texture completely different from spaghetti that absorbs the taste of the soup. The taste is simply divine, a special sweetness and nostalgic countryside aroma. He swallows a mouthful, and the deep flavor settles within him to the very core. The simple, sincere taste of this dish grants a moment of unexpected relief. It cuts through the memory of that heavy, oppressive atmosphere of the royal court. He carries on his shoulders the colossal burden of duties to be the Grand Duke and the king's brother. In the midst of his inner storm, he suddenly finds deep peace in a simple bowl of soba. He cannot believe that a dish from another world can give him such comfort and warmth. He suddenly realizes, this simple soba is incredibly profound, its taste reflects the entire complexity of life. He closes his eyes and savors the last lingering drops of the exquisite broth. The bowl is completely empty, proof of his complete satisfaction. He put down the bowl side and whispered that it was truly incredibly delicious. Both men finished the ice-cold water, feeling refreshed and fully satisfied after the meal. Smiling, Yukito approaches their table and asks if they liked his soba. Markwil Vale and his knight Adamant are full and deeply satisfied after the feast. Alvil swallows for a long time and announces that the merchant has become a great patron for them. Adamant agrees, admitting that he has never tasted anything so delicious even in the capital. He sighs bitterly, regretting that his king cannot taste such a wonderful dish. Merchant Yukito approaches their table and sincerely thanks them for the warm words. Two aristocrats raise their eyes, puzzled, as Yukito freezes mid-sentence. Yukito, with a sly smile, extends a small shaker and asks about shichimi togarashi. They ask what it is. You could explain that it is a spice that completely transforms soba. He enthusiastically describes how its spicy note enhances and makes the flavor richer and clearer. Alvil and Adamin are stunned, asking if that is really possible. Both are overcome by a burning, desperate desire to try this new flavor. Vuel orders another bowl for both of them, and Adam agrees to please his master. In a booming voice, Alvil confirms the order, and Yukito bows deeply. Yukito shines with happiness, clenching his fist in a silent yes. A wave of emotions overwhelmed him. He can still pursue his dream to cook soba. The scene suddenly takes us back. He lies in the snow and believes this is the end. He was in despair but suddenly noticed his precious, restrained equipment. And now, in this strange new world, he can once again pursue his craft. With renewed passion, he once again devotes himself to his love for Nadai Tsujisoba when she comes to a new country. The story introduces us to the shop owner Hatsushiro Yukito, who was once a mangaka. Having just finished university, he managed to get a weekly serialization of his manga. He was forced to draw 19 pages in just 7 days plus additional work for printed volumes. Harsh, relentless days of exhausting work dragged on endlessly. His only salvation was the 24-hour standing non-alcoholic establishment Nadi Sujisoba. In those hard times, this simple pleasure was the only thing he truly looked forward to. The shop was a large chain, and his sobriety was his only comfort. He found solace in the simple rustic aroma and the gentle taste of warm soba. For him and many others, it was a refuge where working adults found healing. The dear refuge was the beloved Nadai Tsujisoba. After 3 years, the publication of his manga ended, and he left his career as an artist. He started a new life taking a half-time job at the very same store sober. He decided that his time had come to give others a place for healing. And so, waving his hand joyfully, he began a new path in his career. He worked desperately, putting all his heart and soul into the new endeavor. After 3 years, his persistent work finally paid off. He became a full-time employee. Finally, he was promoted. He headed a brand new branch in Suidabashi. On that exciting day of the grand opening, suddenly unseasonal snow began to fall. As he was leaving, he noticed a young girl who almost fell on the icy sidewalk. He was used to the fact that people in Tokyo were not accustomed to snow, while he was a native of Hokkaido. Walking down a quiet street, he heard the rumble of an approaching truck. The truck tires screeched loudly as she lost control on the icy road. He turned around, confused and frightened by the sudden, deafening noise. His world exploded into a blurry whirl of motion as the truck rushed towards him. When his umbrella broke, his last conscious thought was, all is lost. He suddenly felt a strange fall. His world instantly turned upside down. Suddenly, he sharply jumped up and sat down, realizing there was no pain. He was completely bewildered and vainly tried to somehow understand this strange situation. He found himself sitting all alone in the middle of a vast empty sea of clouds. He touched the airy ground and trembled, wondering if he was really standing above the clouds. He realized this meant he was not saved, he was actually dead. No matter how he looked at it, this strange place had to be a real paradise. He remembered the truck and understood he must have died instantly. He settled into defeat, grieving that his life ended just when it was only beginning. Tears streamed down his face as he mourned the future he had planned with himself. He clenched his fist in despair, believing that such an end was too cruel. Behind him, a calm voice sounded, "You don't have to be so pessimistic." He raised his gaze. His face was still wet from tears of despair and confusion. He turned sharply and, surprised, saw who could have been speaking to him. A man glowing in classical robes introduced himself as God and addressed Yukito simply by name. You would be surprised to notice that he looked more like a Greek god than a Japanese one. God explained that he was from another world, possibly even from a completely different universe. Yukito froze in shock, realizing that this meant another world, a classic isekai. God told him, "Don't worry, it's just what they call reincarnation." He explained that his world was a fantasy land of monsters, swords, and magic. God also endowed people with special abilities, gifts, so that they could fight demons. You are still surprised why God would want an ordinary person like him. God smiled and said that the reason was actually very simple. Then he offered Yukito to reincarnate. Do you want to? Yukito froze in amazement and asked if such an incredible thing was even possible. God confidently said that it was possible. After all, he is God. Your face could also have shone with excitement and hope at this incredible prospect. But God clearly said, reincarnation in his world, not on earth. Yukito's enthusiasm instantly shattered into shock, and in its place remained complete disbelief. Panic seized him. He shouted that he did not know how to fight and would not survive in this fantasy world. God calmed him and promised that he would not leave him there without help. He leaned closer and, as a special gift, offered grant Yukito any gift he desired. God explained that with this granted power he could become a hero or even a king. Yukito's imagination ran wild. A life of luxury without work seemed to him the sweetest dream. He even imagined himself building a harem and satisfying all his desires. God confirmed all this was possible, since there was no evil demon lord to fight. You could cautiously ask what would happen if he refused the offer. God said sadly that he would have to wait 100 or 200 years before being born again. Yukito heard in shock that there was no guarantee he would be born a human again. God presented him with a choice, to be reborn in his world or simply do nothing. You could all consider this offer and acknowledge that he had something he wanted to do. God encouraged him, saying it was okay even if it had nothing to do with fantasy at all. A new determination rose in his eyes. One could say he decided to prepare Soba. God was momentarily stunned by this simple and unexpected request. He blinked in confusion, and a single drop of sweat slowly rolled down his forehead. Suddenly it occurred to him that Yukito was an employee of Soba shop, and he wondered if that was really his wish. Yukito eagerly corrected him, exclaiming that it was by no means just some non-alcoholic bar. He, with fire in his voice, declared that it had to be Nadai Tsujisoba. The god thoughtfully mulled it over, repeating the name Tsujisoba to himself. Then he asked Yukito to tell him everything to make the gift perfect. Yukito, blushing with excitement, gladly agreed to explain what Nadai Tsujisoba was. He passionately began telling the god of listing about every little detail of his favorite restaurant. The god listened attentively, absorbing all the important details needed for the gift. With a sudden snap of his fingers, the god announced that the gift was ready. He smiled and noted that Yukito was the first in his world to ever ask for a sober shop. Yukito, with a serious expression, sought the final confirmation that his dream could really come true. God smiles mysteriously and says that all the details about the place with the dog are such a cheerful secret. God calmly explains that levels need to be raised, and Yukito panics at the very thought of fighting monsters. Yukito sighed with relief upon hearing that God allowed leveling up without a fight. God explains that Yukito can learn all the details simply by saying status open in the new world. God proclaims that it is time to send Yuki on his way. Is he ready? He could nervously admit that he is not ready at all, but he knows he has no choice. God responds with a knowing smile and a simple well then. With a majestic gesture, God sees him off, bidding farewell to the child of the earth. Yukito's body is illuminated by dazzling light as God sincerely wishes him well in Arlie. God closes his eyes and offers a final silent prayer for the boy's path. He hopes that this child of the earth will bring a fresh wind to our own world. A moment passed and the transition from the divine sphere back to the world of Aro occurred. The scene returns to the present time. We find ourselves again near the mysterious shop Nadetsuja Soba. Two empty bowls, one contains a fork, the other chopsticks, and they silently indicate that the meal is over. Alvil enthusiastically praises Kavkazabu, saying that she has seeped into his tired bones and revived him. He solemnly calls himself Heisenmarky's Elvil Lord of Stoneman. Then he introduces his companion Gash Adamant, commander of the Alvil Knights. Yukito smiles, realizing that he is in the presence of very influential, high-ranking aristocrats. He quietly rejoices his soba is a hit even among gourmets of this other world. Politely bowing, Yukito introduces himself. I am manager Hatsushiro Yukito. He pronounced his name and finished it with a bright, confident smile. Yukito Hatsushiro. The pleasant atmosphere suddenly changes. Elvale and Adamin look at him more closely again. Alvil's face became serious, and he quietly asked Yukito if he has a surname. Yukito embarrassedly replies that surnames are quite a common thing in the lands he comes from. Alvil noted that this is exactly where the wonder lies, and this only confuses Yukido even more. The Marquis leans forward and says he has a few questions he must ask the young manager. He directly asked why Yukito decided to open a shop in such a backwater. He wonders how did a store appear here if he gave no one permission to build it. As if out of thin air, the shop simply appeared one day, he notes. It struck all of you like a thunderbolt. These influential men deeply distrust him. I will ask covertly if he cannot answer, but Yukito is already beginning to respond, saying no. Resolutely, Yukito closes his eyes and agrees to tell them everything. His story begins not in this world, but on a distant planet called Earth. He tells how after death he found himself in a place resembling paradise, and there he met God. He recounts that he was once a human from Earth and tragically died in an accident. And then God endowed him with a special ability, a powerful gift. And with that gift, he was sent from one reality to another. Suddenly, he found himself alone on a dusty road in the middle of a boundless empty desert. Looking around, confused and stunned, he wondered, is this another world? Then he suddenly remembered God's last instruction to say the words, status open. Taking a deep breath, he clenched his fists and loudly shouted the command into the air. Suddenly, a semi-transparent screen appeared before him. It displayed his stats and the new gift. The screen prompted, touch the name of the gift and you will see more details. He looked at the interface, completely confused by that game system. He touched the screen and grumbled that God could have chosen a more atmospheric name. In the details, his power was revealed. He could summon the Nadai Tsugasoba establishment whenever he wished. It would be an exact copy of the same Switabashi branch he was supposed to manage. He cried when he realized that God had also given him a home and inexhaustible supplies. He stood alone in the endless wilderness, realizing his new reality and incredible gift. Noticing that there was no one around, he decided it was time to test his new ability. Taking a deep breath and gathering his courage, he prepared to summon his dream. He shouted with all his might, "Nadeitsuju Soba Isekai branch." In a dazzling flash of light, a familiar building began to appear before him. The very air crackled with the power of his sudden, impossible creation. The shop stood before him fully ready, and he froze silent with joy and wonder. Incredible, he thought, this is really the Suidabashi branch right here. He finishes the story, explaining that this is exactly how he just arrived in this world. That's all he says, finishing his tale. Avail and Adamant remained silent. Alval said that from the very beginning he suspected, Yukido is not an ordinary person. It was visible how someone raised their eyes in surprise, trying to understand what that sign could mean. Alval leans forward and whispers the local word for such creatures, aliens. The revelation hung in the air, changing everything for the young shopkeeper. You can repeat the unfamiliar word too often, trying to grasp its meaning. Stranger. Alval says that although rarely, foreigners still appeared several times in Arlie. The last one he showed was a guy from Kenya almost 30 years ago. Now clarify he is also from Earth, but originally from a country called Japan. Marquis has never heard of Nihon and doubts that any records about it have been preserved at all. Everyone was filled with disappointment. You realized that there was no other Japanese here. But then he is suddenly struck by an exciting insight. Wait a minute. Suddenly he realizes he himself will become the pioneer who will bring wonders to this land. Sober. While he celebrates, a neon sign calls him by name and sharply brings him back to reality. Alval solemnly invites Yukido to move his shop to his domain, the city of Alval. He says that Elvil once was the capital, and now is the second largest city of the kingdom. Because of the large population, he is sure that crowds of customers will rush to taste his soba. He asks Yukido to take his shop under his protection. Yukido is delighted with this proposal. He imagines all those weary people in the city to whom he could serve his soothing soba. He agrees that a big city is cool, but asks what patronage really means. Alval explains, strangers are anomalies who should be protected from those with evil intentions. Many powerful and greedy people dream of seizing the knowledge and technologies that come from their gifts. You can confidently start the tests, saying that his gift is just some sober shop and nothing more. Alval counters that a shop with endless food supplies is a previously unknown and terribly threatening phenomenon. An army that can move without food is a frightening military advantage. Without protection, aggressive states like the Vainheim Empire will definitely target him. Yukido finally understood what the danger here is. That is why I need your protection. Alval says that the duty of the nobility is to protect foreigners who bring new ideas to the kingdom. He offers a place under his protection in the city of Alval. In return, he asks for taxes. He asked if Yukido really believes that the people of Alval will not come to consume his sobriety. Then the great Marquis bowed deeply, begging the young shopkeeper. Adamin is stunned and exclaimed at the incredible display of humility of his lord. The mighty aristocrat still stands bowed, and his request hangs heavily in the quiet shop. Yukido is impressed. This mighty man bows his head to protect him specifically. He suddenly realizes, Elval is not a bad person, on the contrary, he is truly a good person. His face blazed with determination. He knows he must agree to this sincere request. He responds with a deep bow, officially accepts the offer and relies on the Marquis. Alval and Adamin clearly greeted his agreement to accept their offer with relief and admiration. But Yukido raises his hand and says he has only one request. The Marquis and his night watch, filled with curiosity, what is his condition? That's it, they agreed, and they set off on the road towards a new beginning. Three men burst out laughing. The tension dissipated, and Elval asks about the condition. Yukido has one simple condition. He wants the very best place to open his new store. While the carriage rushes through the night, Marquis Avea proudly shows her lands. Yukido, his face flushed with surprise, exclaims, the city of Alval is simply huge. He gazes at the medieval streets, no wires or lanterns, but everything is so vast and impressive. Against the backdrop of the full moon stands a majestic castle, and Yukido froze in admiration. The veil proves this is his home. You could tell Lakensit to Germany to the new castle Neuschwanstein. A girl in traditional attire greets them with a deep, respectful bow. She leads Yukido to the guest room, so luxurious it seems as if it was made for kings. Alval gently wishes Yukido good night and suggests meeting in the morning. The sun rises, pouring the first light and announcing the beginning of a new day. On the table, a modest breakfast, stale bread, salad, and a boiled egg. During breakfast, Elval asks Yukido if he slept well, and Yukido thanks him. You might find that the bread is hard and dry, and the salad is seasoned only with salt. Looking at his plate, he realized, this is what a typical breakfast here is like. Alval joyfully announced that he had prepared a plot of land for Yuki to shop. Surprised, Yukido asked for confirmation, and Alval replied, this land is his. They froze before the colossal stone wall, and Yukido with his companions were simply speechless. Blushing with excitement, Yukito asks if this is really the designated place. Avel explained that beyond the wall is the castle garden and asked him what he thought about it. You might worry about safety, but Alvil just laughs and assures him that it is not a problem. The sign insists this is the perfect place, convenient both for him and for the public. Yukito hesitated for a moment, then said he would agree only on one condition. He sincerely asks if he can serve not only the castle residents, but also ordinary people. He passionately talks about his dream that everyone could enjoy his sobriety. He does not aspire to be a private chef, he wants to treat everyone with his food. Alvil solemnly agreed, giving Yukito full control over the rules of his shop. Overflowing with joy because of this kindness, Yukito sincerely thanks Marcus. Alvil smiles and impatiently tells him to immediately summon his Soba shape. You all could focus, preparing to unleash his powerful and unique gift. He shouted a command, summoning his otherworldly Soba stall. The modern showcase of Natty Tsujisoba perfectly emerges within the thickness of the castle wall. Alveli Rupp laughs with delight, impressed by the sight of the bullet piercing the stone. You could also smile, thinking that this is the incredibly inappropriate kind he imagined. Two knights shuddered from the sudden appearance of the building, and with wonder could not comprehend what it was. Vale suggests that they all eat a bowl of soba before returning to the castle. You all could simply agree and say that he has already had breakfast. The Marquis admits that he deliberately ate a little because he was waiting for the chance to taste soba. You can also invite them to try the new menu and thereby surprise Alvel with the update. He smiles and explains that his gift has risen to a new level and opened new dishes. Two steaming bowls are served, wakame soba and horenso soba. Alvel takes a bite, his eyes close in bliss, and he says that it is delicious. In the text window, it is joyfully announced about Yukito's gift, a new skill menu that appeared after his level up. A group of knights looks confusedly at their bowls. Unfamiliar food confuses them. Alvel confidently encourages them to try, guaranteeing the taste of this otherworldly dish. One night he nervously raises his bowl and prepares for his first hesitant bite. His eyes shot with shock, he is completely captivated by the incredible taste. The knights burst out with admiring exclamations. The rich soup and strange additives were simply amazing. Elvel departs, promising to return, and Yukito sincerely thanks him for the support. You can smile looking at the clock and asking yourself when the next customer will come. The clock ticks but no one comes and his smile fades, turning into nervous sweat. He slumps on his feet, complaining that he has no customers at all. Looking outside, he sees the locals are wary and keep away from his shop. He hesitates whether to go outside and look for customers on his own. Suddenly, Commander Adaman appears accompanied by his knights and loudly announces his visit. Adaman explains he has been busy all morning, so he finally came to eat. But you can gladly offer them the new menu, and it will immediately interest the commander. Two appetizing bowls of new soba are depicted with such delicious detail. Adamant notices new fillings, and his subordinates sit and wonder what it could be. The commander assures that the food is tasty and tells his men, "Don't be afraid, eat." The young knight hesitantly bites with a fork, a faint blush barely visible on his cheek. He loudly slurps the noodles, closing his eyes and enjoying their unique taste. His eyes suddenly opened wide in incredible surprise, while his companion just watched in amazement. All the knights now loudly and eagerly slurp their soups. Yukatabams, meanwhile, the satisfied men loudly ask for seconds. Their bowls are clean to the bottom, only chopsticks remain inside. They leave with a nighttime promise to return and tell their comrades about it. "Could you please clear the empty bowls?" The young lads ate heartily. He freezes in the middle of the task, embarrassment showing on his face when he hears a sound. And a message appeared. He gasped when he realized that his gift had risen to a new level. The text panel vividly describes his third-level gift and lists all the new menu items. Hover over the new dishes, you will see among them Hiyashi Tanuki Soba. He freezes and suddenly understanding appears on his face. He sees the requirement for promotion to the next level, an astonishing 100 customers. Grabbing his head in panic, he realizes that now 10 times more is needed. The panic within him recedes. In its place blooms a determined, confident smile. The words curry with rice and curry set with rice dramatically flash across the entire panel. In the photo, an appetizing soba set with a portion of curry with rice. Yukito clenches his fist, convinced that curry is a dish loved by everyone. He loudly declares that no one can resist the incredible deliciousness of curry. He warmly recalls how the Korean soba set kept him afloat when he worked as a mangaka. He rubs his hands in anticipation, eager to cook his favorite curry with rice again. The doorbell rang as the client's feet crossed the threshold. When Yukito washes the dishes, a sudden sound makes him flinch. He turns around and professionally, cheerfully exclaims, "Welcome." His smile disappears, replaced by a puzzled look when he sees his guest. A solitary figure in full armor stands silently at the shop's entrance. The visitor is a young woman. Her face was tear-streaked, and she was sobbing. You could cautiously approach and ask if she is a client. The woman covers her face with her gauntlets and begins to howl loudly. She falls to her knees, overwhelmed with grief, and Yukito watches, stunned. The camera stops on the shop sign Nadaitsuja Soba hanging above. The woman in armor, with tears in her eyes, apologizes for crying and causing a scene at the entrance. Yukano gently hint that she is probably hungry, her stomach is growling. He stands and cannot understand why this person suddenly started crying as soon as she entered. The woman raised her eyes to him, and her face now radiated sharp, vigilant concentration. She asks with desperate hope if this is really the Natty Sujisoba shop. Suddenly Yukito appeared and he confirmed, this is indeed his establishment. The woman pressed her palms to her chest and sighed with unspeakable relief. She leans closer, her voice becoming a whisper she is about to ask. She asks if they have Hayashi Tanuki Soba, and Yukito remains completely shocked. Folding her hands together, she repeats her request, and hope burns in her eyes. Yukito froze at her serious gaze. Only one question remained in his mind. How could she have known about Soba? She grabs his hands and desperately begs to be served a bowl of Hayashi Tanuki Soba. He pondered, who is this mysterious woman, questions swirling in his mind. He decides if she really wants Soba, he will gladly fulfill her request. With renewed strength, he invites her inside and tells her to sit anywhere free. Her face shines with relief and gratitude. She sincerely thanks him for his kindness. Returning to the kitchen, Yukito gathers his thoughts and focuses on the task ahead. He takes freshly cooked noodles from the steaming pot with a skimmer. A pile of thin grayish noodles glistens as he drains the hot water. He quickly rinses them under cool water and they become perfectly elastic. He glances at the arranged bowls waiting, preparing to assemble the final dish. With skilled hands, he carefully transfers the noodles into the serving bowl. Then he pours shimmering, cold, clear broth over the bed of noodles. At his station, a whole palette of toppings, finely chopped green onions and wakame. Next, he turns his attention to crispy golden tempura bits. He carefully spoons a generous portion of the crunchy topping. Finally, he generously adds a portion of crispy tempura crumbs. He serves the ready Hayashi Tanuki Soba, a perfect dish that entices and invites. He smiles warmly and says to her, "Enjoy," and she replies, "Thank you." He looks at her with a curious and attentive gaze. She brings her gloved hands together, a sincere gesture of prayer. Yukito froze, completely surprised by her traditional Japanese manners. With a calm smile, she thanks for the food and says, "Itara kimasu." This is the Japanese way to sincerely and deeply thank before sitting at the table. He keeps wondering who this mysterious woman really is. The seller froze, completely speechless, confused by her actions. The story turns to the past and introduces Ludia Selin. She was once a French woman. Since childhood, she was a passionate fan of Japanese anime. She got lost among the bookstore shelves every time, completely immersing herself in the world of manga. After school, she rushed to Tokyo to study art and fulfill her dream to become a mangaka. She tirelessly honed her artistic skills, combining this with university studies. When she watched her favorite anime, she noticed that isekai was becoming increasingly popular. With curiosity, she dived into the internet, searching for what other stories she could find. She discovered the largest web novel site in Japan, a true treasure trove of stories. She began reading, captivated by the huge selection available to her. Hours flew by. She completely and utterly immersed herself in those tales. The buzzing of cicadas announced the arrival of the hot Japanese summer. She also fell in love with Japanese cuisine, especially a small cafe where they made soba near the university. One day, she was served a bowl of their signature Hayashi Tanuki Soba. The chilled noodles with tempura crumbs looked incredibly refreshing. The unique culture of dashi broth turned out to be a real discovery, completely different from French cuisine. Eating this cold soba on an unbearably hot summer day turned out to be a true salvation. This taste completely filled her senses with pure, genuine joy. She ate every last piece and felt complete satisfaction from the wonderful dish. The very first taste of Hayashi Tanuki Soba knocked her off her feet. Soon she became a regular guest, and the staff already recognized her by face. Her aunt married a Japanese man and lived in Tokyo. She was her person on the spot. Her kind uncle often took her to his favorite soba place nearby. The three of them sat together and savored the food that warmed the heart. He taught her to enjoy beer together with crispy, appetizing croquettes. She watched him enjoy the food, a true image of satisfaction. Then he swallowed his cold beer slowly and with pleasure. He spoke enthusiastically about what a thrill it was, and she smiled at his simple joy. Current always reminded her uncle that Lucia was still too young to drink beer. She promised herself that when she turned 20, she would go out drinking with them. She really liked the cozy, tavern-like atmosphere. The impression was wonderful. She truly believed that those happy, ordinary days would never end. But during the summer holidays, the shuttle to the airport she was on was hijacked. When chaos erupted around, a shootout broke out between the terrorists and the police. The terrorist was shot when he was firing in her direction. She saw a flash from the barrel, and her last thought faded into silence. Later, she learned that her death was instantaneous. She will go suffocating, with her eyes wide open. The shock still does not let go. When she woke up in what seemed like heaven, God from another world appeared before her. God welcomed her into his world of swords and magic arrow. Her name was Lucia Sellen, and thus began her new life. She did not feel that she was dying, but reality was still sad. Even sadder was the fact that she never got to say goodbye to her family. But then suddenly she was pierced by an electrifying realization. As if in her favorite anime, she was reborn in another world. She eagerly volunteered to save the world and promised to complete any great mission. And so God gave her a powerful gift. She gained a new power, the legendary and mighty King of Swords. With a determined smile, she said she was ready to go save the world. But her new companions asked in surprise which evil forces she was talking about after all. Peace reigned around them. They told her that the Great Wars had ended a very, very long time ago. The Demon Lord had already been captured, and this greatly disappointed some. She froze in horror when she found out that the world was incredibly calm. Her gift was wasted in vain. Her team suggested becoming dungeon explorers, and it sounded quite unheroic. Her adventures were pathetic, leaving her comrades wounded and helpless. She had to activate her healing abilities every time to save her eternally complaining team. She fell into despair because of the terrible food, stale bread and soup without any flavor. Lonely nights were the hardest part of her new, disappointing life. She tossed from side to side, finding neither comfort nor peace. She sobbed, lamenting that she could not become a heroine like in her favorite anime. She quietly whispered the names of her mother, father, and everyone she missed. She desperately wanted to return to Earth to eat her favorite soba. Her desire to eat soba flared so strongly that it became a thought that consumed everything. And then she saw him, Nadai Soba, proudly towering in the castle wall. She wondered, could this be a hallucination from thinking so much about Earth? She saw that the shopkeeper looked like a Japanese man and could not understand how he ended up here. How did he manage to bring things like a gas stove from Earth to this world? She had many questions, but decided to eat first and give thanks. There were no words better suited to this luxurious bowl of soba. With a confident hand, she reached for a pair of chopsticks. She broke them. A familiar, pleasant crack sounded. Suddenly, a wave of nervousness overcame her. It had been 2 years since she last ate this. Her chopsticks trembled slightly as she was about to take the first bite. She carefully brought the perfect portion of shiny noodles to her mouth. When she brought them closer, a drop of broth fell full of promises. The shiny soba noodles reflect light, their simple beauty mesmerizes her. She takes the first bite with a pleasant slurp and enjoys the moment. This springy, chewy texture is a completely different world compared to hard, tasteless bread. After 2 long years, the rich aroma of soba fills all her senses. She notices the fragrant, crispy pieces of tempura clinging to the appetizing noodles. A light, satisfied smile plays on her lips as she chooses. The crunchy, aromatic taste explodes like a fireworks display of deliciousness. She quietly whispers to herself how truly tasty this simple dish is. Next, she tries guacamole. Its unique texture fits perfectly. Then she enjoys the sharp, refreshing taste of green onion. She returns to the pleasant crunch of spicy tempers. She takes another bite, then another. She can't stop. Soon the bowl was empty, the best proof of how much she enjoyed it. Yukito asked if she liked it, and she confirmed it was delicious. He was already turning to leave, but she suddenly grabbed his hand and stopped him. "Wait," she exclaimed, startling the surprised seller and another customer. She leaned in closely, accusing him. "Are you the reincarnated stranger?" She insisted further and guessed correctly he was from Earth, specifically from Japan. Yukito was completely stunned and could not understand how she read him like an open book. Panic seized him. He remembered that he was ordered to keep his identity secret. He wondered maybe she was just a dungeon researcher who heard some rumors. The memory of protecting his gift overwhelmed him. He felt that she could not wish him harm. He nervously asked how she could have possibly learned his secret. She laughed, apologizing for her sudden accusation that scared him. She beamed with a bright smile and confessed that she too was reborn. He froze in surprise and asked in shock if she was really transformed like him. He looks thoughtfully at himself and thinks about his appearance, unusual for this world. The locals adored the Grand Duke in his knight attire, a true Caucasian. The woman before him also had European facial features. She confirms that she seems local, but in fact is originally from France. Suddenly, the image of Arctatrium flashed in his mind. He recalls that the last stranger found here was a boy from Kenya. She knew that foreigners were protected, but feared that corrupt nobles would exploit her. She was first noticed near Olor, where a notoriously corrupt viscount ruled. Fortunately, the Duke of this land does not tolerate such corruption. He sympathizes. He understands well the fear when you find yourself in someone's powerful hands. He understands how lucky he is in his own situation. She laughed, realizing that she had completely forgotten to introduce herself properly. She calls herself Lucia Sellen, and he has a hot Suksero Yukatu. The name Hatsushiro makes her stop. A familiar feeling flashes in her eyes for a moment. She explains that her aunt married a Japanese man. His name was also Hatsushiro. "What a coincidence," she says. "Her uncle's name is Hatsushiro Yukihito." It was visible how those eyes widened in absolute shock as soon as that name was spoken. He grabbed her by the shoulders and sternly demanded that she repeat the name Yukihito. He asked if by any chance her aunt's name was Amanda. Now Lodi was left completely speechless because of his question. He admits that his older brother is also named Hatsushiro Yukihito. He firmly states that the man she is talking about is his only brother. She froze in amazement, recalling that his brother married a French woman named Amanda. He remembers that her maiden name was Montreux and seems to see their wedding photo. She confirms her aunt's maiden name really was Amanda Monter. He raises his eyes to the heavens and cannot comprehend what that god was thinking. They suddenly realized both were in Tokyo but never met. He was always so absorbed in working on manga that he didn't even find time to visit his relatives. She sadly realizes, probably he had already died before her arrival in Japan. She knew he had a mangaka brother but had never seen him. Suddenly she was struck by a shocking realization like a flash. She calls him God and admits with a smile she has all his mangas. She was devastated when his series abruptly ended and received no continuation. His work prompted her to move to Japan to become an artist. But her dream was cut short. She was killed during the capture. She was reborn with the gift of the King of Swords and dreamed of becoming a heroine. But after 2 years of suffering, she no longer wants to fight. You could lay a gentle, soothing hand on her shoulder. He tells her that she is great, she survived on her own for so long. The reality of this world was not at all the fantasy she had imagined. She was lonely, receiving a futile gift every day. Her life was full of pain. She quietly admits that she no longer believes she can go on. She is tired of seeing her friends suffer and tired of fearing death. Yukito understands, but feels trapped because of the gift she chose herself. He sees in her exhausted eyes his former burnout. He decides if something can save her, it is a dog. He reminds her, you went to art school to learn how to draw. He tells her that she can draw wonderfully and does not need any special gift. She firmly asserts that a person cannot be reduced only to their gift. She feels that she cannot compete with those who have an artistic gift. He offers her a way out. She can come and work with him. He knows that she loves Soba, so she is the perfect candidate. He shouted loudly that she must work here after all. He needed help anyway. She loves Soba madly and can protect the shop and his niece. He explains that Soba is a new genre here and a truly unique opportunity. This is her chance to tie up with adventures and work with him. She quietly whispers these words to herself, pondering the offer to work together. She wants to say yes, but worries that she lacks experience. He gently calmed her, says he was a manager and can teach her. He jokes that he also died on his first working day. She looks at him, a strange connection begins to form between them through their shared fates. He thinks that all this feels like a serious interview. He offers salary, food, and a corner to sleep upstairs. He asks again if she agrees to work with him in the shop. She raises her eyes to him, cheeks rosy, eyes shining. She accepts with a deep bow, surrendering to his care. He smiles, extends his hand, and warmly invites her to join the team. When he says her name, a new hope blooms on her face. Their palms met in a firm handshake, sealing the deal. The next day begins a new life for Lucia. She instantly sprang into action, greeting 2 new visitors. She turned out to be a natural, greeting clients with a professional smile. For now, she is immersed in payments. Cooking food is too complicated. You could watch as her thoughtful and satisfied smile appeared on his face. Lucia gracefully takes orders at the table where the men blushed and looked at her with adoration. She serves another table of equally love-struck knights. Their faces are flushed with admiration. The eyes caught it themselves. All the clients were men and a powerful Lucia effect was felt. He realized that with such a number of new clients, he could now definitely rise to the next level. A notification about a level up exploded on the screen, and in his gift was now delicious curry with rice. In the castle, 2 nobles were lively discussing the strange new snack bar in the castle wall. Lord Lilycon passionately invites his stern companion, Scent, to eat together. Scent coldly refuses the invitation. Such things do not interest him. Lucia gazes enchantedly at the steaming plate of curry with rice, truly moved. Tears run down her face. She whispers emotionally, curry rice. It was clear that she was in shock and crying, but she explains that this is the best way to eat rice. He smiles, recalling that too many years have passed since she last ate white rice. He explains that the curry at Soba shop contains dashi, so it is the perfect combination. Lucio believes that the shop will prosper, and you agree, feeling her sincere, passionate support. He announces his big dream to make this humble little shop the favorite of the entire city. Now the scene shifts to the office of the commander of the Alville Knights. Adamino was informed he was assigned to guard a stranger named Hatashiro. The knight Scent froze in shock and exclaimed, "This cannot possibly be him." Marquil V looks stern and unwavering. He has already decided. Scent stands confused. He cannot understand this strange, unexpected order. He is steadfast, with a calm smile, insisting that Saint will take on the mission. Saint insists fervently that he himself must be the first to do it. He is outraged. Such humiliating tasks are unworthy of a knight like him. He pondered how he was idling and realized he has nothing truly important to occupy himself with. Saint Lily Khan is a knight of humble origin, a rare and highly respected position. He grew up on a poor farm and using his combat gift became a soldier. During patrol, he single-handedly encountered a group of bandits and defeated them. For his bravery, he was nicknamed Lily Khan and became a minor noble. His rise through the ranks made him an idol of the common soldiers. Even knights born into nobility respected him. But upon becoming a high-ranking knight, his pay increased, and his duties simply vanished. The promotion brought him deep and tormenting boredom. He withers by the castle wall, overwhelmed by a deep feeling of ennui. He feels motivation slipping away and reaches for the honest, simple work of a farmer. Sitting idly has become unbearable, and he desperately seeks to find any kind of job. A comrade knight finds him and shouts, "Commander Adamin is calling you." Sent was surprised and did not understand why the commander was looking for him specifically. He stands on the threshold and worries that his recent dissatisfaction has already been noticed. He signals his presence, and a voice from inside invites him to enter. He enters the office, makes a polite bow, and apologizes for daring to disturb. His eyes widen in complete shock when he sees what is before him. At the table sits not just a commander, the great Duke Heisen himself. Stunned, he bows to 1E and addresses the great Duke with respect. Oval tells him to calm down, but he stammers and apologizes for his low rank. Adam and Hood, of course, advise him to relax so that the Duke does not seem frightening. Sent raised his eyes. He is still hesitating with his intentions before such a magnificent nobility. I was hinting for him to sit down, but he stubbornly stood. Alval insists and explains that this conversation will last so long that he will not endure standing. Reluctantly, Sent sits down, apologizing at the same time. Elvil apologizes for not informing, and this causes confused surprise. Sent begs the Duke, the highest noble of the kingdom, not to bow his head before him. Adamin explains what follows is a secret known only to him and the Duke. Elvil asks Sen if he remembers his order to protect the shopkeeper Yukido Hatsushiro. Sent recalls a strange shop and its owner with a mysterious summoning gift. He cannot understand why the Duke personally defends an ordinary citizen. Sent confesses to the authorities that he has never entered the shop even once. Alvil, a guest, asks in surprise, how did it happen that he never tasted this delicious food? Sent explained calmly, he eats in the dormitory and that is enough for him. The figure of Alvel and his facial expression caused genuine irritation because of this pathetic excuse. Sent anxiously asks if he is to blame, but Alvel calmly says that this is not the case. He waved it off and said that what matters is what will happen next. Alvel reveals a great secret. Hatsushiro turns out to be a stranger, just arrived in this world. Sent jumped to his feet in shock and asked if it was really so. Strangers are rare innovators who have pushed their world forward with their knowledge. Now he understands why the Duke was ready to personally protect such a valuable person. But he still does not understand why this great secret is entrusted to him. Adamant calls him by name, his face serious. He is preparing to give an order. He gives the order once again. Send must take on the mission to guard Hatsushiro. Send's face a mask of pure shock before immense responsibility. Under the open sky of the city, he digests the burden of this revelation. Gaining courage, he emits a gloomy sound of determination, accepting his new role. He takes up guard, standing on post in front of the Nadai Soba shop. He carefully examines the food model and wonders the very idea of noodles in broth seems strange to him. He remembered the words of Al Weil, who predicted that he would be glad to have this mission. Both his bosses enthusiastically praise soba as an exquisite, incomparable dish. He still doubts before arriving in the city he had never eaten noodles. A familiar voice calls his name, sharply pulling him out of his thoughts. It is his old comrade Orman, inviting him inside to eat soba. He sadly recalls how Orman called him Sen's-san even before the promotion. The polite Sama now feels like a chasm between them. Orman stroked his belly and went inside, leaving behind a faint scent. After a moment of hesitation, Sense gathers courage and finally dares to try the food. He rushed to the door, deciding to enter the shop himself. Inside, he was greeted joyfully by the new waitress Lucia. He freezes in surprise. A woman is working in front of him, and he has no idea who she is. He remembered that the owner, Hatsushiro, ran the shop alone. The sudden appearance of the young woman confused him, and he asked her, "Who are you?" She smiles and introduces herself as a new employee and talks about the managers inside. She offers to call the manager, but Sent tells her it is unnecessary. She leads him to a chair and he, a little embarrassed, thanks her. He sits down, his face stern, carefully examining everything around. He looks closely at unfamiliar spices and strange wooden sticks on the table. Suddenly, something else in this unique restaurant caught his attention. He notices the menu smooth and professional, as if in a fine establishment. He extends his gloved hand to touch the strange, shiny object. His eyes widen in shock as his fingers touch the menu. He looks admiringly at the hard, shiny paper and suspects that this material is not of this world. The illustrations are so detailed, as if real food was pressed right onto the page. A small neat smile played on his lips as he studied the menu. He sees the price only 340 and is simply shocked at how cheap it is. Scent Lily Cone stared at the menu, shocked by the incredibly low price 340 coal for soba. He wonders how this stranger running this place can even afford to stay afloat. His eyes stopped on an unfamiliar dish called curry rice, a plate of white rice covered with brown sauce. The day is cool, so he decides not to succumb to the cold while sober, and this thought seems strange to him. He is still studying the menu, with a thoughtful, skeptical expression on his face. His gaze freezes on an item called Horenzo Soba. His eyes widen in disbelief. He recognizes that green top and asks aloud if it is a boy. He does not believe his eyes. Before him is Savoy cabbage, a vegetable that grows only in distant northern villages. His snowy hometown Hallberg comes alive in his memory, where his family were farmers from Savoy. A glimmer of nostalgia appears in his eyes as he sinks into thought. He remembers how his mother served that bitter, fibrous green that all the children disliked. Grandmother and grandfather laughed, saying that it was a taste for adults, not for children. The young Scent recalls how he himself struggled to eat that tough vegetable. His brother nudges him and persistently urges him to eat the nutritious greens, but he remains indifferent. He remembers how the brothers jokingly tried to make him eat what he did not like, oil. Meanwhile, the guys at another table were impatiently ordering as Lucia approached him. A strange clicking pen with which Lucia takes orders catches his eye. Ludia smiles warmly and asks what he would like to order. Orders were sent to Horen Soba because they believed the pen was another artifact from Earth. Lucia confirms her order with a bright smile. She shouted to the kitchen, "One Lorenzo Soba." Scent shuddered at Yukido's cheerful reply, not noticing at all that the manager was standing so close. He resolutely sets about fulfilling his duty while the secret team watches. He looks around and notices with surprise, the shop is filled only with men. The shot reveals a simple, neat interior of the soba shop. He listens as Lydia hums a lively tune and thinks it is probably a song from Earth. Lucia suddenly surprised him. She brought a glass of iced barley tea as a gift. He holds the sparkling glass, beaming with joy at this unexpected, luxurious treat. Ludia returns and announces that his order is ready. She places a tray with a steaming bowl of Horenzo soba in front of him. A detailed close-up shows a beautifully arranged bowl of soba. Scent gazes into the plate, a light blush on his cheeks. He is completely captivated. He looks at the broth and wonders how the brown soup can be so clear. He notices the rustic gray noodles quietly resting in the crystal-clear soup. He watches bubbles avoiding the paper-thin decoration dancing in the rising steam. He inhales the delicate aroma, closing his eyes in deep admiration. He is sure this is the very delicious soba his bosses praised so much. He rummages across the table looking for a fork or spoon, wondering if the waitress forgot to bring them. At the neighboring table, a boy decisively breaks a pair of wooden chopsticks. The boy proudly raises the separated chopsticks, showing how to use them. Scent is simply shocked by this strange, foreign table utensil. The boy happily sucks the noodles with a loud, pleasant sound. Scent, with a trembling heart, understands. Probably this is how it is customary to eat here. He decides to obey the custom of the establishment and eat with those strange wooden sticks. He clumsily fusses, trying to separate the sticks by himself. He decides to carefully taste the soup first. He raises the bowl to his lips and takes a barely noticeable sip. The taste is simply incredible. It impresses immediately and powerfully. He is delighted. This delicate broth, not at all like meat or vegetable, is incredibly tasty. Then he pays attention to the noodles and lifts a few thin strands. He brings the noodles to his mouth and takes a loud gulp. He is captivated by the dense, chewy texture and wonderful rustic aroma. Pleasant warmth spreads through him as he enjoys the taste. He smiles, finally understanding what his leaders were so happy about. He realizes this warm Savoy is exactly what conquered their youthful hearts. Having warmed up, he takes on the main event. All his attention is now fixed on the pile of Savoy. He recalls that 15 long years have passed since he left his home. 10 years have passed since he last tasted Savoy, the taste of his past. He carefully lifts one piece of green vegetable with his chopsticks. He holds his breath, noticing its deep green color, and wonders, is this a different variety? For the first time, he brings a piece of Savoy cabbage to his mouth to taste. His eyes open wide in shock as he clenches his teeth. The crisp, pleasant crunch of the tender leaf caught him by surprise. He swallows and his head spins from this unexpected taste. He is amazed. The tough, bitter vegetable has become tender. Its flavor is rich and balanced. He closes his eyes and enjoys the deep flavor. He seems to return to childhood, realizing that this is the true taste of his native land. A barely noticeable smile plays on his lips, one that said it all. He knows. He remembers how he and his brothers all grumbled together about Savoy. Tears well up in his eyes. What he did not like in childhood now tastes so good. He bites again and quietly admits to himself, he never really hated it. Overwhelmed with emotions, he cries, recalling his happy family, savoring wonderful food. He bitterly remembers that he sent the last letter home 2 years ago. He decided that he needs to write to his family soon so they know how he is doing. He is sure that after such exhausting work, he deserves a long vacation and can finally go home. At another table, the elf notices how the knight cries while he eats. She looks at him and thinks, did he just get moved to tears by that incredible delicacy? The elf Tassyria smiles blissfully, agreeing that this unearthly food is truly amazing. Events rewind a week back, and we find ourselves near the mysterious Soba shop. Tassyria thinks to herself, finally I have arrived. She stands in front of the building and says to Jasobai, this is Natty. The researcher of the elven gift beams. With excitement, he longs to explore the legendary unearthly eatery. In a memory, another researcher appears and sternly warns her, contacts with strangers are forbidden. She recalls the news. After 30 years, a new stranger appeared. Out of hundreds of volunteers, she was chosen the only researcher for this special mission. Her curator Marquis Cantus ordered a secret investigation at the request of the stranger. She vowed to uncover the secrets of the gifts while honoring the Marquis' agreement. A week ago, her investigation had just begun when she noticed something inside. She looks through the door and sees that a group of thugs is already standing there. The door automatically slid aside, and she realized this must be some kind of magical device. Inside, the men aggressively demand that the boss teach them his recipe. Manager Yutsito politely explains that his ingredients are not of this world. Tassyria guessed correctly, this friendly young man is the stranger. The men got angry and accused Yukido. Allegedly, he wants to appropriate all the curry for himself. They threaten him, warning that he will regret his refusal. You could stand against Lydia Beck while she loudly shouts his title manager. The surrounding customers flinched from the sudden and violent clash. Incredibly quickly, Luria grabs one of the bandits and throws him out of the shop. Tassyria blushed, completely impressed and enchanted by Ludius's powerful performance. On Yukido and Ludia's faces, complete shock and despair. The mercenary was thrown out of the shop with incredible force. Tassyria watches as another thug tries to steal a plate of curry. The thief smiled, thinking he could reproduce curry himself. Suddenly, Curionis's plate disappears into thin air. Tassyria looks admiringly at the magic that drives away troublemakers and makes the food vanish. She clenches her fists, determined to thoroughly investigate this mystery. With slight excitement, Syria enters Soba Shab. Laya greets her with a bright smile and warmly invites her inside. She smiles and invites the elven researcher to sit wherever she likes. Tassyria blushes, reviewing the exquisite, unfamiliar menu. Inside, impeccably clean, nothing like the dirty taverns she had to see. Her eyes suddenly opened wide with surprise when she spotted the details in the menu. She was completely stunned by the huge number of illustrated options. She orders cake soba, the very dish that the mercenaries were hunting for. In front of her, they place a steaming, fragrant bowl of soba. She takes her first cautious sip of that noodle, as if from another world. Her face is a true picture of delighted surprise. She continues eating, fully immersed in the incredible taste. A single tear rolls down her cheek as she whispers how delicious it is. This simple dish is far better than the best restaurants in the capital. Now she understood food from another world is truly incredible. Her gift-perfect memory awakens and catches every detail. She mentally tells herself, I have completely mastered Keksoba. She thinks that her gift is rare among elves because it is not magical at all. Meet Tassyria, a researcher from the Ibaraki forest. Her home is the endless forest in the east, in the kingdom of cathedrals. Although elves are often reserved, Tassyria was always different. When she was young, she asked a traveling merchant about his books with burning curiosity. He realized that the world is full of different people and countless gifts. The merchant noted with surprise her unusual inquisitiveness for an elf. She did not feel the need to stay. She was drawn to Lan, rich in magic. Reading by lantern light, she knew about her stream. She wanted to learn every gift and engrave it in her perfect memory. With this aspiration, she left the forest to gain experience in the real world. She became a dungeon researcher, boldly diving into dark and dangerous caves. She was introduced as a skilled elf who expertly wields a bow and a short sword. The influential Kana market saw her potential and recommended her. She saw her great chance here and eagerly seized this opportunity. If she manages to prove what she is capable of, a new path will open before her. During the expedition, a giant snake attacked their group. Marquis Cantus fell from the monster's blow, seriously wounded. The others panicked. No mage could cure such severe poisoning. But Tassyria suddenly declared that she had exactly that antidote. She carefully, as if holding life in her palms, gave the saving potion to the fallen main star. Having saved his life, the group waited for him to recover. Filled with gratitude, Marquis Cantus offered to repay her in any way. She shyly admitted that her true desire was to study the gifts. And so she was appointed director of the new research institute. In her new office, the next stream was already gathering to study the stranger's gift. She suddenly burst into her colleague's room, shouting that something huge had happened. One of the fellow researchers unexpectedly reported that a new stranger had appeared in Elville. Sarah knew without a doubt that her chance had come again. At the end of another shift, Yukito and Lucio celebrate a busy, eventful day. Yukito suddenly stops, surprise on his face. He excitedly explains that the shop has reached a new level, and new items have opened up on the menu for them. He barely blushes, imagining new culinary possibilities. The scene changes before us, opens a view of the castle battlements. The next morning, the cheerful Tessera comes again to eat. Lydia warmly greeted her and thanked her for being a regular guest. Tesseria almost fainted from Ludius's smile amid the charming aroma of the shop. She was already about to order, but her eyes caught something new on the menu. This dish, tempura soba. Stunned, she scrutinizes every ingredient of this mysterious new dish. Ludi approaches, she noticed the new item. She proudly says that tempura soba is their newest dish on the menu. Tesserius's face shines as she eagerly orders tempura soba. Lucia gives the order to Yukito, and he happily gets to work. The name tempura soba echoes loudly in the elves' shaft. She barely restrains her excitement, her mind bursting with questions. She quickly swallows water to calm her wildly beating heart. She smiles to herself, trying to compose and adopt an academic manner. Her sharp ears caught a strange sound from the kitchen. She hears that unmistakable sizzling sound something is frying. Her face twisted curiosity and anticipation were both readable on it. She gets up from her seat, pretending she needs to live. She says, "I'm just going to the bathroom." From the doorway, she peeks into the kitchen. Yukito is cooking. Her eyes widen as she watches his unusual way of cooking. She casts a keen glance at the bathroom sign and continues to watch secretly. She realizes he is frying ingredients in a large pan, immersing them in boiling oil. She knows cooking oil is worth its weight in gold. Commoners are forced to use cheap, foul-smelling animal fat. She recoils from the memory of Lord's strong, unpleasant smell. But in this shop it smells so wonderful that it is immediately clear. All the ingredients are from Earth. She remembers that greasy, unpleasant fried dish that she once ate at a banquet. She sincerely believes that Yukito will prepare something incredibly tasty. Returning to her seat, she was bursting with excitement in anticipation of the food. Ludio appears with the order, a bright smile shining on her face. She presents tempura soba, a majestic, fragrant dish. Tesseria gaffs completely and all the food before her. She admires the majestic golden-brown tempura disc towering over the noodles. She swallows the anticipation, and her mouth is already watering. She decisively raises her wooden chopsticks. She lifts a piece and wonders, it is lighter than she expected. Her mind catches that the main ingredient is sweet pecorosonians. She also notices the bright red body of the shrimp, which is called ebi here. She instantly guesses it is in batter and fried in hot oil. Usually she tastes the soup first, but today she can no longer wait. She takes a huge bite and her face twists with pure bliss. She bit off a big piece with pleasure. Her mouth is full of golden fried deliciousness. It seems to her that this irresistible texture is like a cookie from another world, enough for a whole week. She cannot believe her eyes. The pecoroscaya onion is sweet, not spicy at all, unlike the one she knows. A close-up shows a plump, juicy shrimp deeply hidden in crispy breading. She smiles blissfully, noticing that the shrimp is the perfect accent, and the oil is not heavy. A sip of dashi broth completely resets her taste sensations before the next tasty piece. She decides to add a pinch of shichimi togarashi, quite sure it will fit perfectly. The explosive flavor overwhelms her like a flock of birds rising into the sky. As if in an instant, the bowl became completely empty. She is filled with deep satisfaction, and she knows she will never forget this meal. A new luxuriously seductive thought began to hover in her mind, which made her blush a little. She wonders what will happen if she eats this incredible dish with curry rice. Just imagining tempura soba and curry rice together is almost unbearable. Although she is full, her insatiable curiosity does not let her rest. She loudly calls Ludia and orders another soba with tempura on a plate of curry rice. Lucia passes a huge order to Yukito, and he cheerfully and sincerely confirms it. Tesseria thought that after a whole day of eating only soba, today's lunch must be truly special. She vows to return at night and says that intellectual work requires gluttony. The lunch rush turned into chaos, voices calling Lucia come from all sides. From the kitchen, Yukito loudly calls out ready orders for the noisy hall. Ludia, embarrassed but skilled, calls the manager again to place another complex order. You could tow and they accept it gladly. They are happy that the shop trades so briskly. Ludia smiles, happy for the clients, but they are already on the edge. She mentally tells herself they have long needed to find more help. In the text window, they cheerfully explain the gift upgrade system and inform that beer has been added to it. You felt it immediately upon entering his room. The level of his gift has clearly risen. He is shocked and at the same time delighted. The next new menu item turned out to be beer. He suddenly remembers that in that sweet branch of Obashi which he managed in a past life, they also sold beer. A few days ago he decided to first scout how they drink here. He and Ludia visit the local tavern after closing to conduct their investigation. The waiter brings to their table a large rough wooden mug of local ale. Yukito raises the mug to his lips, ready to quench his thirst after a long day. He takes a big sip, and Lucia looks with a sly, amused smile. He immediately recoils with disgust, thinking to himself that this ale is absolutely terrible. Lucia confirms his assessment, noting that it is always warmish, sourish, and with sediment. She explains that alcohol in this world is underdeveloped, even the noble wine is weak. She says that normal lager exists, but it is completely monopolized by the Weinheim Empire. Yukito is simply stunned. It turns out there are no strong spirits like whiskey here. Ludia adds that the famous gnome fire wine is just ale with medicinal herbs. You see, he knows well, the brewing technologies of this world lag far behind his own. A brief memory shows Lucia smiling as she enjoys food together with her uncle in Japan. She sadly tells Yukito that she always dreamed of trying beer at least once. Yukito was pacing back and forth and suddenly realized he must hire a new worker before he starts selling beer. He thinks that finding another person as capable as Lucia would be a real miracle. He decides that he must hire a local and wonders who would be suitable. He resolutely decides tomorrow he will ask Ludia for advice. The next day, the satisfied client sincerely thanks Lucia for the delicious dish. Yukito calls Lucia from the kitchen when the bustle finally begins to subside. He tells her to rest after all, it has calmed down a bit. The wall clock mercilessly shows it is well past 1 o'clock. Yukito tells Ludia that he will watch over the front while she enjoys the staff lunch. Ludia heads deeper into the room, thinking with interest. What original menu has the manager prepared today? She gasps and blushes at the sight of the luxurious dish Yukito prepared. In a large bowl proudly lay a massive golden brown cuckager named Dawn. Wiping sweat from her forehead, she exclaims, "How incredibly tasty this special dish is." She folds her hands in sincere gratitude and only then begins to eat her dish. She raises the bowl, inhaling the wonderful appetizing aroma of fresh tempura. A close-up of the tempura emphasizes its crunch, that freshly fried sound and texture. She skillfully picks up a large piece of mixed tempura with chopsticks. Her face lights up with impatience as she brings the first piece to her mouth. She bites into a huge, truly satisfying piece. A loud crunch echoes through the frame. Immersed in bliss, she savors the rich flavor of onion and makes the shrimp fluffy. An orchestra of musicians with onion heads seems to play a symphony of flavor in her mouth. She closes her eyes and thinks, how incredibly luxurious this dish is. Her eyes instantly flash. She realizes the flavor adventure is not over yet. She bites into the fluffy rice, enjoying its texture and subtle sweetness. The spicy taste of cabbage begins to melt along with the rice. She smiles from the heart, enjoying the perfect combination of tempura and rice. Chopsticks lift the perfect piece crispy tempura, gently embracing fluffy rice. A pleasant, rich crunch loudly emphasizes the moment when she chooses. Suddenly something clicks in her. She looks down at her almost empty bowl. She lifts the bowl and looks with surprise. She can't believe she ate it all. Her gaze caught the pot standing nearby with steaming dashi broth, and an idea flashed in her mind. Smiling slyly, she decides how to perfectly finish the meal. Yukito says with a smile that his old colleagues always poured dashi over their leftover rice. Lucia takes a sip of the warm, tasty dashi that soaked into the rice and the tempura. The sudden warmth of the broth makes her exclaim in surprise. A gentle, deeply satisfied smile spread across her rosy face. She eagerly finishes the rest of the food and exclaims that this is the best. The rich umami from the tempura oil gently soaked into the dashi broth. She raises the bowl to her lips and drinks the last sip of warm broth. The flavors somehow, rice and dashi merged into a perfect trio. She is enchanted by that perfect harmony born from three simple elements. Sighing contentedly, she folds her hands together, having finished her incredible meal. She feels as if this is a dream to taste such delicious food again in this world. She recalls with disgust the bland rations and terrible food in taverns from her adventure days. She considers Yukito her savior, a bright ray in her thoughts. While washing dishes, she suddenly remembers Yukito's request to find a new worker. She thoughtfully asks herself, is there anyone who can both cook and serve guests? Suddenly she realizes, most of her acquaintances are other adventurers in the dungeons. She complains, in this city she really has no other acquaintances left. In the memory, it is seen that adventurers can cook right in the dungeons, but only know the simplest dishes. She understands that a skilled cook does not have to seek adventures at all. She suddenly remembers a guild worker with whom she once shared food in a dungeon. The young man sincerely praised her dishes, saying that his family ran a snack bar. She exclaims that she remembers he was a wonderful cook and tries to recall his name. On the stairs, a young man named Chap with prosthetic legs. Suddenly, the title page of Nadaitsuja Soba appears on the screen. Chap returns to his room, where the elderly landlord greets him with a warm smile. He thoughtfully realizes that his prosthetic legs, custom-made by gnomes, allow him to live a normal life. The older man smiles kindly and says to the young man, "For now, don't worry about the rent." A new chapter begins. Chep, a young man, enters his modest quarters. He closes the door of the simple room. The knock echoes his loneliness. Sitting on the bed, he sighs heavily. His advanced prosthetic legs are fully visible. He knows he urgently needs to find a job to start saving money again. He calls himself Chap, a former guild porter who is now out of work. In his memory flashed that terrible moment when a magical trap cut off both his legs. Once he was part of the elite investigation department of the guild, staffed by former adventurers. This elite squad consisted of the best explorers, knight commanders, and mercenaries. Chap was taken into this respected group because of his extraordinarily useful gift. The box given to him for his belongings could hold incredible volumes of items, a true treasure for a dungeon explorer. The work was dangerous and life-threatening, but the pay, though irregular, was generous. He was sincerely grateful for the high salaries he needed to save money for his dream. He is the eldest son of a family that ran a small, beloved snack bar in a provincial town. He stands next to his younger brother, a hint of the family drama that is approaching. In close-up, his stern but respected grandfather, a true master of his craft. The family dining room was loved precisely for their unique culinary gifts. His father gave him an incredible speed in cooking, and his grandfather could create any seasoning from just salt. But although he was the eldest, he was completely different. It was his younger brother who inherited the family's gift for cooking. Despite this, Chap adored cooking and gladly helped his family in the kitchen. He was confident in his culinary skills, even without any special gift. The family, seeing his persistent work and enthusiasm, was sure that the diner would go to him. Yet at 15, he made a painful decision to leave home. The family chose his talented brother as the heir to the shop and left him only a short note. He decided not to rely on their kindness anymore. His love for cooking pushed him forward. His new goal became clear: to save money to open his own restaurant. His journey began when he headed toward the largest nearby city, Elvio. He immediately headed to the Guild of Dungeon Explorers, looking for work. Thanks to the gift box with items, he instantly got a job as a porter. The work was dangerous. He had to fight monsters, but it was a good way to earn money. He saved every penny, dreaming of quitting as soon as he had enough to open his own restaurant. He found true joy in his work, especially when cooking food for his team of adventurers. His comrades warmly thanked him, gathering around the campfire to enjoy his hearty stew. They enthusiastically praised his dishes, saying how lucky it was to find such tasty food in a dungeon. The boy would have blushed with happiness upon receiving their sincere compliments. All his comrades knew he could turn the simplest ration into a real delicacy. Now he sadly realizes that his wounded body can no longer endure dangerous dungeons. The money for his dream has run out, and he knows he urgently needs to find a new job. He recalls the words of a stranger: "Money makes the world go round, and you can always earn more." With a look of burning determination, he swears that he has not given up on his dream. Lying in bed, he hesitates whether to look for a job in the merchant guild, or he thought he could get a job as a cook, even if only in preparatory work. A sudden knock on the door pulls him out of his thoughts. The landlady loudly exclaimed that a client had come to him. Chap is confused and frightened, unable to understand who could have come to visit him. He opens the door and sees Lucia Len on the threshold, who greets him with a warm smile. He is completely stunned. His face turns red and he stammers, pronouncing her name. Lucia joyfully greets the stunned young man, who still cannot say a word. He does not believe his eyes. The legendary Ludia is standing right in front of him. He does not believe his eyes. She has come to his modest, cluttered bachelor room. He cannot get rid of the thought that she ended up in such a place. He decided that she must be of noble birth, a noble lady from high society, an important person. And also she is the bearer of the legendary gift of the King of Swords. In his memory, she appears as a formidable warrior, a master of the blade. The fame of her as a mighty swordswoman spread from Alville all the way to the capital. He remembers how he had been to her parties several times, but each time he was too scared to speak. For a moment he thought she left out of concern for his legs, but quickly dismissed the thought. Lucia leaned slightly and, calling him by name, caught his attention. She explains that she heard from other researchers about that accident, the one after which he lost his legs. She anxiously asked if he was all right, and he explained that his wounds had magically healed and he received prosthetics. He laughed awkwardly and admitted that the expensive new legs completely emptied his wallet. He tried to joke, but the joke failed. For a moment there was silence. He is confused, does not know what to say to the famous warrior. Lucia looks at him tenderly with a gaze full of understanding. She sincerely apologizes for appearing so suddenly, without any warning. The embarrassed boy insists that her visit is a true honor. A slightly awkward but polite exchange of words unfolds between them. Lucia's face becomes serious, prepares to get to the point of her visit. She confirms he has been expelled from the guild and now he can no longer work as an investigator. She asks about his legs, and he assures her that they are fine for everyday life, just not suitable for dungeons. He cheerfully adds that it's not so bad, no, he no longer has to worry about foot fungus. Lucia's smiles spoke for them. Sylvesh often went into dungeons barefoot. Her laughter makes him blush shyly. He nervously scratches his head, trying to compose himself before the famous adventurer. Lucia becomes more serious and directly asks if he has already found a new job. He lowers his eyes and admits that he did not do it. A wave of relief swept across Lydia's face. She is glad she made it in time. Chap, confused, asks what she means by in time. Suddenly she grabs him by the shoulders. Her energy so overwhelms him that he instantly blushes. With an admiring, hopeful expression on her face, she calls him by name. She asks if he really dreams of becoming a chef and one day opening his own shop. She fondly recalls how he taught her to cook in the dungeon, praising his delicious food. He remembers telling her about his dream to intern in a real restaurant. Seizing her chance, Lucia boldly makes a grand proposal. With a bright, hopeful smile, she asked him to come and work in her shop. He asks confusedly which shop she is talking about. She proudly says she works at Natty Suja Soba, the best diner in the old capital. Chap is sure, to truly train, he needs a place where the cooks are real masters. Lucia assures him that one taste of their soba will prove she is not lying. The next morning, she proudly shows him the magnificent Natty Suja Soba. Chap froze in silence, and Lydia, all excited, happily explains how much she wants him to try this dish. He looks enchanted at the transparent glass doors and wonders how much such a treasure might cost. He is sure these exquisite food models in the showcase are the work of a true master. He admires this luxurious building as if it were created specifically for a royal visit. He asked Lydia if Nadia Tsugasoba is really a first-class elite restaurant. Lydia laughs and says it is a canteen for ordinary people, the cheapest sober, for only 340 kol. The guy is stunned by such a low price and exclaims that for such quality it is too cheap. Lucia pushes him inside and whispers that there awaits him a delight of unknown flavors. She leads the still shocked one through automatic doors into a mysterious shop. Chap stands stunned and exclaims that the doors open and close by themselves. It becomes clear to him, even the most exquisite restaurants he knows do not have such magic. He now wonders how he could have considered that restaurant top tier, when nearby there is a simple family canteen. With a determined look, Chap stands at the threshold of the amazing store's sober shop. He closes his eyes and inhales a wonderful, unfamiliar aroma coming from inside. He analyzes this tempting aroma, neither meaty nor plant-based. He realizes it is from seafood and admires the tasty, delicate scent. Now he knows without any doubt, the chef of this establishment is a true master. Yukito appears, warmly greets and says that he is the manager. The boy blushes, completely stunned by such a flawless and professional greeting. His impeccable etiquette is so astonishing that anyone would think he definitely trained in the kitchens of a royal palace. The embarrassed boy stammers, saying his name, blushing under Yukito's friendly gaze. Yukito smiled and remarked that he was just thinking about hiring a new employee. Lydia cheerfully interjects and says that Chap really knows how to cook. She enthusiastically offers this job, saying that their delicious soba is a perfect bonus during training. Chap is panicked, flusteredly assuring Lydia that he never said anything so confident. He tries to contradict her loud statements, completely confused in front of the manager. Yukito calmly advises Chaps to try the soba first, and then decide whether to work there. He gestured for the still confused guy to sit down instead of standing in the doorway. Smiling broadly, Yukito hands over the menu and invites him to order anything he desires. Chap takes the menu, impressed by its high quality and meticulous craftsmanship. He sits down to consider the options and politely asks Lydia for a glass of water. He looks embarrassed at the unfamiliar dishes, recognizing only Savoy cabbage in one. If he has trouble deciding, Yukito kindly suggests the new Hayashi Kitsune soba. Chap stares at the photo in the menu and cannot understand what is that large brown triangular piece on top. Can you explain that with the approach of summer, cold soba is a particularly tasty and refreshing dish? Deciding to embrace the unknown, Chap solemnly orders the recommended dish. He is filled with nervous excitement before this completely new culinary experience. He is confident that by tasting this dish, he will become a better chef. His face lit up with anticipation when he heard that his food was being brought. They serve Hayashi Kitsune soba, a beautifully arranged and incredibly tempting dish. Chaplin is here, eyes wide open with admiration as he gazes at this mysterious dish. He froze in amazement when Lucia suddenly sat at his table with her bowl. She beams with a smile and says she hasn't eaten breakfast yet but will join him soon. With a joyful itadakamasu, we sway Lydia thanks and prepares to eat. Chap glanced at her for a moment, then took his chopsticks and began. Lydia sucks on her noodles, her face shining with pure, sincere pleasure. A close-up reveals her blissful smile as she enjoys the familiar, delicious taste. Chap recognizes that look, it's the face of a person eating something truly wonderful. He decides to approach this dish with the same focus and respect as a real chef. He carefully examines the components: gray noodles, dark broth, and 2 triangular toppings. Although he understands cooking, he honestly admits he doesn't recognize a single ingredient. He realizes with a blush of determination on his face that this food is testing him. He cautiously grabs the unusual chopsticks, preparing for the first bite. He instantly concludes, this soba is clearly from a region with a completely different cuisine. He decides to start with the main thing first. He will taste the noodles. He clumsily fumbles with the chopsticks, so I try to catch that slippery noodle. Finally, he manages to lift the small, shiny piece to his mouth. Precisely cut noodles shine as if covered with precious stones that catch every ray. He takes the first bite and sucks the cold noodles into his mouth. A sharp, dynamic line emphasizes the short, pleasant sound of sucking. His eye instantly opens wide. The taste hit so hard that he froze in deep shock. Savoring this multifaceted aroma, an image of a quiet, blooming coast arises in his mind, filling all his thoughts. It transports him to a rural landscape, and he exclaims how pure and tasty this flavor is. He froze, stunned. This dish is nothing like any food he has ever tried. It is like another world compared to the noodles he knew, for example, spaghetti. He thinks about other dishes, those usually made just to fill the stomach. Some deliberately make them too hard and oversalted, all for preservation. Others rely solely on the innate quality of their expensive ingredients. But this dish masterfully highlights all the best. It is first-class work. Now he understands Ludius's praise. This is truly one of the 5 best restaurants in the kingdom. He swears to work here, but first he must finish analyzing Hishi Kitsune Soba. He fully focuses on that mysterious fried tofu filling. He lifts a piece and sees the fragrant broth endlessly dripping from it. It shines with oil, he notices, but has no traces of grill marks. He takes a bite. His eyes widen as the explosive flavor hits his tongue. He is stunned by the metaphorical waterfall of deliciousness crashing over him. What is this? He thinks, completely overwhelmed by that incredible taste. A stream of sweet and savory flavor floods his tongue like a mighty waterfall. He has never tasted anything like this before. It completely overturns his idea of what delicious is. He contrasts this sharply with the refined, delicate dishes of gourmet cuisine he is well acquainted with. This flavor is bold and straightforward, and without any doubt simply incredibly tasty. He swallows and a deep, powerful taste spreads through his senses. Delicious, he exclaims loudly, addressing Lydia and asking what this incredible thing is. Lydia smiles and says that a bourrage is so tasty because it has absorbed all the broth. Chep repeats the unfamiliar name, Oi-san. On his head appears Zerenia, a tiny cartoon version. He cannot believe that it is made from beans, and even Lucia admits that she does not know how. Lucia loudly calls through the kitchen window, asking if the manager knows how it is made. Chaper proudly boasts about the strange dish, the unique shop, and its incredible chef. He clenches his fist over the bowl. A determination to learn everything here ignites in his heart. He stands, bowing deeply. Once he begged to be allowed to work at Nadide Tsuja Soba. Yukido and Lucia greeted him with a firm handshake. They found a reliable new ally. After 5 days at the entrance to Soba shop, a confident guy welcomes customers. He and Lydia work as one, with incredible coordination, serving the crowded restaurant at the height of the lunch rush. He suddenly shouted out a large order, 3 cake soba with curry sets. He again passes to Lydia through the kitchen window, another complex order. You could stand and smile looking at him, thinking about how much he has helped you. Chap works skillfully. You can see how experience from the family diner guides every move. Yukido is grateful that Chap fits so well into the otherworldly style of the shop. In the silence, one thought bubble appears and then another. Chap decisively reaffirms his dream to become a chef and asks Yukido to train him. He admits that the taste of sobriety shocked him, and he still has so much to learn. He passionately says that one day he will create such an innovative and incredibly tasty dish himself. Yukido feels a sharp doubt: are the methods of the chain restaurant sufficient? But he was moved by Chap's earnestness and passionate plea. He is again transported back to those days of training, when he watched in fascination as the mentor skillfully worked with the noodles. He remembers how once he made a mistake and overcooked soba so that it became too soft. The mentor reassured him, cooking soba is difficult, but you will master it. Pass on this wisdom, say that Chapey has good instincts and will definitely learn with practice. Chap's face shines with hope and determination. He responds with a sincere yes. In the kitchen, the boy asked manager Yukido a question. He cannot contain his curiosity. He wants to know the secret of their incredibly tasty dashi broth. You can explain that they use kombu and katsuobushi flakes. He smiled and explained, katsuobushi is smoked and dried bonito fish. Maybe you should thank advertising for the fact that vegetables and bones also add incredible flavor. Chap carefully takes notes because the lesson turned out to be incredibly useful. He sincerely admits he has not yet decided on the theme of his restaurant, but he swears that everything he learns here he will use to open his own shop. Yukido is touched, sincerely hoping that Chap will continue this restrained tradition. A wave of determination swept over Yukido. He must be a good teacher. He firmly grabs his noodle strainer, ready to give all his strength to it. The clock on the wall silently shows, a little past 3:45 in the afternoon. The lunch rush has finally subsided, so the team got a long-awaited break. Chap notices that the evening crowd will come soon, and Ludia smiles lunch here is always packed. Chap recalls that exquisite restaurant in the noble quarter, where entry is only by prior reservation. Lucia remembers that popular old diner on Main Street. But both agree Suja Soba is the liveliest place around. Lucia jokingly asks if he is not tired of constant work. Chap Smile says no, he believes the best job is the one that brings true reward. He recalls the days of travel when simply surviving meant victory. Now he has developed a deep sense of purpose, and he truly feels alive. He is sincerely grateful to Yukito and Lucia for teaching him so patiently. He still can't manage those strange magical devices in the kitchen. But Yukito is a good mentor, always ready to show once more. The boy blushed shyly. What a wonderful place to work, he thought. Lydia tells him to take a break, she will watch the front. He heads to the storeroom and suddenly remembers it's time for the workers' lunch. You can agree when he confirms that the dish he ordered is already ready. On the tray stands a wonderful bowl of wakame soba. Chap looks at the dish and suddenly realizes he has never eaten this before. He knows this dish is a key step in his culinary training. He sits down, ready to sort out the flavors and enjoy every note. Dish KK soba, generously sprinkled with guacamole. He quietly wonders that in many cultures this seaweed is simply thrown away. He took a bite. The texture was soft and especially chewy. The pleasant texture in the mouth turned out to be a real surprise. He is just shocked. Who would have thought that such a forgotten ingredient would turn out to be so tasty? This special crunchy texture perfectly suits the spicy soba broth. The rich aroma of the sea envelops his senses. It is incredible. Suddenly he realizes kombu, wakame, and bonito all from the sea. Their natural affinity creates a perfectly harmonious taste. Remembering Luda's advice, he loudly slurped the noodles. Now he understands, when you slurp, the aroma and taste become stronger. He concluded that this unique experience works only with soba noodles. He finished all the food in the bowl and blushed how deliciously the manager cooks. The noodles were eaten to the last strand, but his lunch was not over yet. With a determined grumble, he rises from his seat. He approaches the modern rice cooker standing on the countertop. With a quiet hiss, he opens the lid. A huge cloud of fragrant hot steam burst out. He scoops up perfectly cooked rice and admires its shine with delight. He takes on the second part of the meal, rice and pickled cucumbers. The rice is firm to the touch and has a subtle, barely noticeable grainy sweetness. But it is this simple taste that makes it so versatile. It is a true canvas for soups and spicy side dishes. Today he decides to savor it without the usual curry. He bites off a large piece, enjoying the pure taste of rice. Then he sprinkles some spicy shichimi into his leftover soba broth. He pours the seasoned broth over the rice and eats contentedly. A blush of genuine satisfaction spreads across his face, and he sighs. Holding the empty plate, he smiles, thinking it was delicious. He quietly reflects, having such food is a true privilege for workers. It was so tasty, he sighs, clearing the dishes. He recalls the times when he saved on every meal. Lucia Pixon could not believe he had already finished eating. She decisively tells him, now it's my turn for a break. It's fun to remind Chap that wakame is unlimited for staff lunches. Chappa had just been Dana, feeling full and ready for the evening hustle. A simple panel and the scene smoothly changes. He firmly ties a bandana and announces, time to work. In the dining hall, he sees two castle servants chatting about worldly matters. He overhears them saying that the Great Duke is terribly worried about Marsama. The scene shifts to the majestic Alville castle under a gray, heavy sky. Inside the luxurious bedroom, a maid begs the child to eat. An untouched portion of bread in an appetizing dish lies on a tray. In the large bed, the child with fox ears and a tail stubbornly refuses. The caption names them Marswell Cannon, Alvale, and Hyzen's ward. The maid looks helplessly, her face full of anxiety. Tears roll down Mars's face as they ask why they are alone. They buried their face in the pillow and sobbed for their parents. In the flashback, Mars's homeland is revealed a border territory. Their mother was initially a charming child, and soon transformed into a creature resembling a fox. Mars, a half-blood, inherited the same cute ears from his mother. Their parents passionately loved each other and had a happy marriage. Mars remembers being a happy, smiling, and beloved boy. They recall reaching out to their parents and calling them. And the parents responded with the same tenderness, saying they sincerely loved Mars. The happy memory fades, instead an image of two white ears emerges. The gloomy butler places urns in front of the small, embarrassed child. Mars raised his head and asked with curiosity what these objects were. The housekeeper explains, these are the remains of Mars's parents. During a fierce storm, their carriage crashed into a deep ravine. Mars remains alone, crying and tightly clutching the doll. The child's face is a painful picture of grief. Before them stands the formidable figure of Marquil Vela. He gently adjusts the child, smiling and quietly saying that he is their uncle on the grandfather's side. Mars repeats the name, their voice barely whispering. Alville extends his hand and offers Mars to become part of his family. Mars takes his hand, and so begins a new lonely life in the castle. The last image is a sad memory of their parents. Now they are gone forever. In the unfamiliar land, Alvel young Mars feels completely lost and lonely. The child is surrounded by strangers. The faces of the castle servants are completely unfamiliar. Even the food has become foreign, and Mars again refused to eat. Tasteless child cries, longing for the familiar aromas of the spices of the native home. This heavy news was received with a heavy heart and a quiet sigh of understanding. And with anxiety, Marquil Vale reported that Mars still had not eaten. Abel fears that the child will simply melt away, setting off on the road to join his lost parents. Desperately seeking a solution, the worried tent was suddenly struck by an otherworldly idea. At that moment, Yusido passionately defends his secret curry from impatient customers. His staff only sighs. This happens all the time. The curry is simply irresistible. Yukido loudly declared that his curry is a unique treasure destined to save the child. A new chapter opens a story of comfort, taste, and healing. In a colorful dream, Mars recalls the loving smiles of his parents. The child warmly remembers his kind human father and his beautiful kitsune mother. They stand together before a colorful feast like a memory of happier days. Their mother gently lifts a spoonful of food, her smile warm and inviting. Mars happily bites, tasting the flavor of a perfect and cozy memory. Dad hugged them close and asked if they liked this delicious dish. With a shining smile, Mars exclaims that this food is simply incredible. The child reaches out and joyfully asks their dear mother for another piece. But the dream shatters and Mars wakes up with a breath caught, stretching into nowhere. The painful truth crashes down on them and tears roll from their eyes. They clutch the sheets, remembering that their parents are gone and will never return. A deep aching loneliness envelops them and ignites an uncontrollable desire to see their loved ones. A dangerous thought ripens in the mind. Maybe if they refuse food, they will be together again. Marquil V enters the room and sees that the lethargic child is still not asleep. Mars raises his eyes with a dull gaze and weakly acknowledges his uncle. The fragility of the child squeezes the heart of the mighty star. He gathers his will into a fist, resolutely determined to find a way to save them. Sitting by the bed, he gently wishes Mars good morning. The child gave a weak, uncertain response, with their spirit still broken. He recalls how the servant explained that Mars's ailment was not physical. It is a disease of the heart, a deep melancholy that has taken hold of him. A disease has invaded the heart that cannot be cured by any medicine. Marquil V sincerely apologizes for his absence. This time, he was busy working in the capital. He gently lifts the child from the bed, offering to take them for a walk. They walk through the castle courtyard, the small child lying listlessly in his strong arms. Alvel tightly holds the weak child to himself, a deep, unspeakable anxiety on his face. He is stunned by how light the child has become, a clear sign of exhaustion. He remembers the times when Mars was so strong that he walked holding his hand. But now the boy is too weak and he has to carry them everywhere they go. Mars has closed himself off and pushes away everyone who tries to comfort him. He desperately asks himself if there is anyone in this world who could heal this child's heart. Suddenly the child moved and with a burst of energy, pointed a finger. Alves' stunned Mars spoke for the first time in several days and even asked a question. The child's finger is directed at a strange shop built into the castle wall. Alwell explains that this building is a snack bar called Natitsuju Soba. He points out how strangely it is nestled right into the outer wall of the castle. The diagram shows how the shop cleverly opens both to everyone and to a private garden. He remembered seeing the owner relaxing in the garden, and this sight cheered him up. Mars asks about the shop, and Elwell quietly confirms it belongs to Yukido Hatsushiro. He solemnly announced that this shop was created thanks to the gift of a stranger. His escort cannot believe that he even dared to share such an important state secret. Mars mispronounces the word stranger and naively asks, "Is it something tasty?" Noticing a spark of interest, Elville suggests coming closer to take a look. With a slight nod, the child agrees, and the spark of life lights up in his eyes again. Full of hope, Avil resolutely carries Mars to the extraterrestrial restaurant. The embarrassed servants hurriedly try to catch up with their determined master. He proudly shows the shop and asks the child with a smile what he thinks about it. He notices that although it is early, the shop is already bustling with a crowd of buyers. A wonderful aroma fills the air, and the child's sensitive nose begins to tremble. The scent alone instantly awakens a powerful memory of a banquet from happier times. It is the smell of home food once lovingly prepared by their mother. Elbel's eyes suddenly widen in stunned realization. He recognizes this powerful, familiar smell, the unmistakable aroma of rice with curry. That very evening he returned with Mars, determined to check if this food would help. Alvil holds a small child in her arms, who whispers that the curry smells delicious. Mars smiles blissfully, recognizing the familiar, wonderful scent of home. Suddenly, a look of deep understanding blossomed on Markil Vale's face. Mars's homeland was rich in spices, and the blood of their beasts craved flavor. The child's refusal to eat was not just an act of mourning. He realized that the bland northern cuisine was unlikely to please the child. He admits his carelessness and immediately declares that he has a wonderful new idea. He suggests they go out for lunch at the Soba shop and eat curry. Mars raises his eyes, a spark of hope flickers in them, and he quietly agrees. A warm memory of a happy family dinner scented with curry rises in his heart. The table was laden with bright, richly flavored dishes of the native land. In contrast, simple salty food in the castle did not attract them at all. Holding the child in his arms, Elvil hopes that this place will finally ignite their appetite. The automatic doors smoothly open, a true marvel of earthly technology that enchants Mars. Inside, Mars takes a deep breath, filling with that soothing, almost delicious sensation. The child recognizes the smell of curry and another a pleasant fish aroma. This evokes a warm memory of how they ate grilled fish with their family. Yusito, the shop manager, greets them warmly and in a friendly manner. Lucha politely greets the Grand Duke, and Yukito is amusingly confused. Alvil quietly apologizes to the elf Tesseria, and she only smiles and says that his visit is no trouble at all. Tesseria agrees to pass on his greetings to manager Yukado. Mars settled in Alvil's arms and inquisitively points at the elven researcher. Tesseri smiles, promising Mars a delicious dish from a talented manager. The little child shyly blushed and quietly nodded in agreement. Tesseria kindly extends her hand and gently strokes Mars on the head. The touch awakens a memory of a mother's gentle hand, tenderly praising. Mars closes his eyes, feeling a deep warmth spreading through his body from that gentle gesture. Lucia asks about the child, and Elvil tells about their tragic family fate. When Lucia heard the news, her face filled with sadness and compassion. The Grand Duke lowers his eyes, confessing that this situation painfully wounds him. Lydia beamed and skillfully led them to the table, offering water. Tesseria appears with the brought dish, smilingly escorting the honored guests to their seats. Avil asks if the dish is too spicy, and Mars quietly reassures him. With a smile, the waiter serves a tray with water, cooled by that impossible, luxurious ice. Young Mars looks with wide-open eyes in surprise at the glass filled with ice. The child thinks that the cup shimmering in the water must be from a magical shop. Syria takes their order, and Al Vale asks for smaller portions for the child. She gently agrees to make a portion for Mars half as much as usual. Tisheria, with a smile and a slight bow, passes the changed order to the kitchen. Behind the counter, Yukito sincerely and loudly confirms the order. I notice a new face in the kitchen and watch with interest as the shop grows. The newcomer chap looks and immediately recognizes important guests at the table. But you can confidently smile and promise to prepare a truly delicious dish. Vale gently whispers to Mars, "Open your mouth, take a sip of water." He helps the little child take a sip from the luxurious glass. Mars tastes the cold water and a pleasant chill runs through his body. Mars, with a joyful blush, quietly says that the water is tasty. I hide my sincere admiration for this spark of life, as if they want more. Mars gladly agreed and impatiently asked for more water, curry, and tasty soup. Lucia comes, smiles, and says she will bring them a full, hearty lunch. Tesseria and Chat serve steaming trays with sets of curry and rice. In front of the small, fox-eared child, they place a perfectly measured mini-set. On the tray, a small bowl of cake soba in a curry plate. Mars looked at the dish with admiration and quietly whispered that it is incredible. The child recognizes the familiar brown soup in thick brown sauce. Taking a deep breath, Mars inhales the soothing, nostalgic aroma. A warm memory surfaces. Mother fed them a dish with the same smell. Alvil quietly says, "It seems Mars is already savoring the food." Mars raises his eyes to him. Mars's voice trembles with emotion as he utters his title. Alvil enthusiastically explains 2 dishes: curry rice and cake soba. He inquired what they wanted to taste first, offering curry. He carefully scoops the perfect piece of curry with rice onto the spoon. Alvil gently encourages Mars, "Open your mouth and take the piece." Mars tries first. The taste is instantly familiar and stunning. Before his eyes suddenly comes to life a vivid vision of a smiling mother offering them a spoon. A happy memory filled with tender and gentle words from their parents. Mars warmly recalls that joy, how they shared delicious dishes together with his beloved family. A bittersweet memory instantly twisted the child's face with sadness. Their faces are flooded with tears. They begin to cry for mom and dad. Alvil instantly became worried and asked if the curry was not too spicy. Mars, with tears in his eyes, says that it is tasty, and the taste is exactly like at home. The child so wants to share this wonderful food with the parents. They remember how the parents enthusiastically told them how delicious the food was. Mars Vales wants to eat right now together with his lost family. Abel looked at the upset child, and in his chest he had a burden Vasaro. Mars wants to eat together with his uncle, grandfather's brother, mother and father all together. But they definitely know this delicacy cannot be shared with the parents. They understand the parents are no longer there, and now they will have to eat alone. Elvil hugs the child, knowing that he still does not understand the finality of death. He gently says that their parents have gone to the sky and can no longer return. Mars continues to sob. The cruel truth of their loss finally settles in the heart. Elvil tightly squeezes their little hands, trying to give at least a little comfort. He tells Mars that one must not forget there are still people with whom one must eat. Mars looks up and asks if their grandfather's brother will be nearby. Alvela assures them with a determined look that he will always be nearby. He promises that when they grow up, they will find many new people with whom they can share food. He paints a future where friends happily gather around the evening table. He tells them that someday when they grow up, they will find love and get married. And they will share many meals with the person they decide to take as husband or wife. When they have their own children, their family will only grow. This new family will gather together, share food, and create wonderful memories. And when those children grow up and create their own families, their partners and grandchildren will also join this ever-widening family table. Mars naively asks what family is, not knowing if there is a place for himself in it. They ask themselves if they will really be able to do all this when they grow up. The child feels lost and lonely, unable to comprehend such a future. They ask themselves if this deep loneliness will ever truly disappear. Alvil solemnly swears to protect Mars until he grows up. He says that their parents watch them from the sky and want them to live. Mars asks if mom and dad are also among all those who watch over them. Elvil assures their parents more than anyone want them to be happy. He asks Mars not to think about joining their parents in death so soon. He simply says to live means to eat because no creature survives without food. Eating means taking the life of food and turning it into your own to nourish yourself. Mars looks at him and says, the food in the castle is tasteless. Alvil froze without words. The simple revelation broke his heart. Workers who were listening from afar froze. The child's words shocked them. They simply cannot believe that in the great castle Alvil the food could be bad. Mars sadly says that only their grandfather's brother's food turned out to be tasty. Alvil clenches his fist, a fierce determination on his face. He decisively decided, from now on they will eat every day at Nadii Soba. Mars's face lit up. Mars eagerly asked if he could have curry again. Alvela agrees, promising that together they will find many more delicious dishes. He waved his hand toward another bowl as if saying, cake soba for example. Mars repeats the unfamiliar name Soba with curiosity. Alvil extends to them a spoon of warm, tasty noodle soup. Mars's eyes opened wide with delight. He exclaimed, this is delicious. The child is delighted, refreshed, and asks for more curry. Alvil laughs heartily, rejoicing that Mars is once again so full of life. Since then, Alvil continued to bring Mars a bunch of curry sets. The workers of Nadii Soba always warmly welcomed their special guest. One day, confident Mars came alone. The whole team greeted him. Alvil ordered his chefs to obtain spices from the Federation of Lair Guards. The castle kitchen sharply improved, and the courtiers never tired of praising it. Night gently falls over the peaceful city of Alvil. The sign Nadii Soba hangs over the already darkened storefront. The bell on the door is silent. The shop is closed for today. You can announce that all business is officially finished for today. He sincerely greets his exhausted but happy team. Well done. He notes how busy they have been but says he is grateful for it. He sincerely thanks Chapu, admitting that without him they would not have managed. Chap is modest and Luda swears that tomorrow she will work even harder. Suddenly, a bright notification screen lit up before the stunned Yukido. His gift reached level 7 beer and croquettes were unlocked in the menu. Yukido, with a blush of pure joy, announces that the beer has finally arrived. Chep and Ludi awkwardly ask if he means just the ale they know. Yukido clenches his fists and exclaims, this is a revolution for all the drinkers of this world. He says passionately that his lager beer is much tastier than ale. This is a true revolution. Chap's face darkened and he seriously asked, is this the lumberjack of the Beinheim Empire? He explains the empire monopolized the lager, so ordinary people cannot access it. Their prize lager is so tasty that it is often used as a diplomatic tool. It was clear that the Weinheim Empire was disliked, and this shocked his 2 employees. Chap explains that these are dangerous rivals. They even once fought each other. Yukido quietly wonders what brewers might be like in this infamous country. He contemplates what kind of beer they brew with such dedication. Lucia pleadingly asks him to stay away, but Yukido trusts his gift to ward off evil. He encourages the team, eagerly awaiting the noisy nights that the beer will surely bring. You can barely smile, and it becomes clear that beer is not the only novelty. He announces, at the next level the menu will feature the croquette dog. Chap is puzzled and Lucia beams with excitement, calling it a symbolic dish. Yukido enthusiastically describes how the crispy croquette perfectly softens in a tasty, restrained broth. With manic enthusiasm, he declared that the dish pairs perfectly with cold beer. Lucia agrees, warmly recalling how her uncle enjoyed exactly this combination. You might exaggerate by saying that this new menu will raise the global beer craze to its peak. Chap worries whether they will manage, and Yukido simply ignores it. You can boast as much as you want if people like his dog, it will all be worth it. His passion ignited them. Lydia and Chap agreed to do everything possible. thoughtful expression appeared on Yukado's face. Suddenly, he remembered something. He asked Lucia if there were any other known drinks besides Weinheim Lager. Lydia suggests that he might mean the legendary fiery wine of the dwarves. She explains that it is a strong ale infused with healing herbs. She points with her finger on the map. To the northeast, the autonomous dwarven region is visible. You can suddenly ask them if they resemble the dwarves from fantasy stories. Luda says they are short, stocky, and muscular, but look just like children. Chap adds that they are a stubborn race of craftsmen who love to drink. Yukido wonders why the dwarves have an autonomous territory right within the human kingdom. The story suddenly takes us back almost 500 years to the days when the dwarves flourished in the south. A brutal civil war broke out, and the Veta clan was forced to flee their native land. Meanwhile, a mighty stranger appeared, the fiery giant Surtur. The terrible fiery giant rampages across the continent, spreading destruction everywhere. Eventually, Surtura was defeated by another stranger, the legendary swordsman. When the United Nations fell apart, chaos did not subside for a long time. The exiled Veta clan was forced to wander through the devastated continent. Finally, they reached the newly founded Kingdom of Soba. They settled in the barren Dagato Mountains on land that people considered worthless. The Veta clan decided to make this inhospitable mountain their last home. Their first task was to begin cutting into the hard core of the mountain. With incredible effort, they built a magnificent city deep underground. There they began to search for Orvines, which people had not noticed. Two dwarf miners look at each other with wide-open eyes, full of wonder and admiration. Finally, they found a rich vein of war deep within the mountain. In less than a century, they transformed barren land into a city of craftsmen. It was then that a new type of alcoholic ale was invented. Dwarves are a people born with a talent for blacksmithing and craftsmanship. But one day, a member of the Veta clan appeared with a gift for brewing. Until then, wheat was considered suitable only for feeding animals or for simple bread. But this man performed an incredible feat from this humble grain. He created alcohol. At that time, everyone firmly believed alcohol could only be made from fruits, as in wine. The Veta clan, with a brilliant insight, shared the recipe with the whole world. Ale spread explosively and became a true symbol of this era among drinks. But the inventor was actually a human, a stranger from a world called Midgard. He was found near Mount Dagato, and the Veta clan took him in. To avoid standing out, he hid his true self among them. From the gods, he received a gift, the divine power of brewing. To thank the dwarves for their kindness, he used his gift and created a completely new type of ale. The brew turned out extraordinary, simply incredibly tasty. The other dwarves were stunned with amazement and begged him to teach them how he did it. He generously taught them everything he knew about brewing ale. But he warned that without his gift, they would never be able to reproduce that taste. This legendary story about the magical potion happened about 400 years ago. But the quiet prosperity of the dwarves became a real headache for the cathedral kingdom. At first, the kingdom officially did not allow dwarves to settle there. The king and his advisor quietly discuss how the dwarves adapted to this harsh land. The advisor reports that the gnomes are earning a lot from their new beer. Although they were refugees, they started trading resources and patenting their beer to make money. The king worries they are not citizens, so he cannot collect taxes from them. The situation was complicated by the hostile Formoria clan, expelled from their native land. The advisor anxiously warns, the Formoria clan may seek reconciliation and thus establish their own enclave. The king's council is filled with fear. Moria's intervention will inevitably ignite war. The king asked, what should we do to resolve this? The king listens carefully to the concerns of his advisors. But the clever king already had a brilliant plan in mind. He officially recognized the entire Veta clan as citizens of the kingdom. He gave them the entire mountainous region of Dagato their own independent land. He swore that other lords would never encroach on their lands. The leader of the clans was elevated to the highest aristocratic rank, Grand Duke. He gave them a new family named Dagato and began collecting taxes. The king's advisors celebrate loudly the wars were avoided, and the treasury was replenished with new tax revenues. For 400 years, the Weta Dagato have stubbornly maintained their independence and autonomy. Today, the House of Weta Dagato is a bright symbol of power throughout the kingdom. It was said that without their help, the kingdom would have lost the war with Weinheim. Their first-class weapons now stand behind the backs of soldiers of the entire royal army. The king, looking at the sons of Victor and Hyzen, insists, dwarves are indispensable. He sternly warns them, never let malice in and always preserve friendship among yourselves. The two young princes obediently agreed to carry out their father's order. Years later, a guest comes to the king, greets him, and asks if his brother is all right. The current head is Grand Duchess Heidi Weta Dagato, a renowned heroine. The shot changes. A wide shot reveals the majestic Alville Castle. Inside, Mark Wilwell reads a letter. His face is gloomy. Suddenly, he clenches the letter in his fist and shouts in shock. He fiercely calls his knight Adamant, and he immediately responds. The torn letter whispered that the sender will arrive in just a few days. While Heidi rushes at full speed, Alvil is in despair, blaming his brother for this mess. The sound of hooves thunders across the snowy field, rushing straight to Alvil. Two exhausted dwarf advisors, with faces tense to the limit, fervently begged their leader to stop. Their formidable leader, the great Duchess Heidi, sharply rejects their pleas for rest. Heidi announced that she has an urgent mission to taste the legendary sake the king spoke of. With a fierce cry, she urges her mighty horse forward, desperately seeking a sip of water. She swears to taste the legendary natty Soba, a drink better than Dwarvenal. A flashback begins. Young Heidi, holding her breath, listens carefully to her father's lesson. Her father seriously explains the deep debt the dwarves owe to the United Kingdom. He tells their story as refugees, expelled from their native Formoria. With tears in his eyes, he recalls the people who gave them shelter and freedom. Skeptical young Heidi brushed off her father's story. It seemed too sentimental to her. Her father laughs heartily and enthusiastically, tells about the incredible generosity of the kingdom to his people. He proudly announces that their leader was even given the noble title of Grand Duke. Cunning Heidi senses that behind the kingdom's kindness lie political motives. Her father smiled and jokingly agreed, but still praised her sharp and lively mind. He firmly reminds her of their solemn duty and says they cannot refuse every request. Heidi listens tensely as her father's tone becomes increasingly serious and deep. He sternly warns her, although we have a duty, we are not slaves. He advises her to listen to her own soul when she has to make truly important decisions. Young Heidi stands puzzled. She does not yet grasp the deep wisdom of her father. He points at her with his finger as if saying prepare to become a leader, but she protests. Laughing, he insists that only she is strong enough to take his place. He teases that only she among all his children has the resilience needed for this role. In another memory, Heidi mentally makes plans on how to help her hardworking mother. She gently calls her younger brother cute, and he responds with a funny teasing remark. The mother, in fury, lunges with a knife, chasing the frightened Heidi for teasing. She sadly recalls how 30 years ago her dear father Ottman died. Now she bears a heavy burden to lead her people. Her advisors discuss the sons, confident that one of them will become the next great duke. The covered wagon rumbles along the long, dusty road under the gloomy sky. Heidi muses admitted that after 30 long years, it was finally time to retire. The advisor inside the carriage protests, insisting that she is still too young. Heidi Worley reminds him that her 60th birthday is not far off. The advisor tells her to set aside fatigue, their work awaits. In the distance, the sprawling stone buildings of the capital emerged. Their carts approach the majestic entrance of the capital and its impressive castle. They oversee the delivery of weapons. Twice a year is a vital duty for their land. Exquisite swords and shields forged by dwarves await their time. Soon, they will be handed to the kingdom's knights. As the Grand Duchess, Heidi personally must oversee this important delivery. A court representative hands her the inventory list, and she agrees to check it. She wonders whether to talk to the king about retiring. After all, she increasingly feels her age. Heidi and her advisors have an audience with the king right in his office. The king quietly sips tea from a luxuriously decorated cup. He starts a conversation about a serious matter with the visiting Grand Duchess. The official indignantly protested against the king's informal tone, but the king just dismissively waved it off. Heidi laughed heartily, justifying her noisy and straightforward gnome nature. Instantly, she switches to a businesslike mood and asks him to continue. The king unrolls a scroll and authoritatively asks that their next delivery be 20 larger. He extends a large scroll across the table so she could examine all the details. Heidi and her advisor gasped and were shocked reading the huge list. A mask of distrust froze on her face as she tried to comprehend this absurd request. The list shows a shocking increase in armaments, including the rare Methru weapon. Heidi confirms the 20 increase, but doubts are felt in her voice and gaze. The king sat gloomily and knew his request was too sudden and suspicious. Heidi complains that if she had been told in advance, this request could have been fulfilled. She knows well that this sudden demand will overturn all their production plans. She worries that carrying out this order will completely drain the resources of her domain. The king admits that he is acting foolishly and justifies it by saying that recently there has been less order in the kingdom. Heidi points to a specific item on the list and insists on explanations. Her hand barely trembles as she utters her suspicion they are preparing for war. The king sternly denies any aggressive intentions, unlike the Weinheim Empire. He explains preparation is defense necessary to avoid conflict. Heidi stands firm and loudly declares that her people are not slaves of the kingdom. She slaps the document and asks herself, is now the time to refuse? The king and his advisor remain silent, waiting for her final decision. The king's sharp gaze reveals the full seriousness of the unfolding political situation. He says that his spies reported suspicious movements from the empire. Heidi and her advisors are clearly shocked by this alarming news. He explains his desire to strengthen their defense as a necessary precaution. Worried, Heidi understands that the threat from the Weinheim Empire is very real. The story reveals an ancient, tense history of confrontation with the aggressive empire. Heidi accepts her duty. She agrees to stand up for the defense of their common country. Tension is evident in her. She knows how difficult the task ahead will be. She insists that even with materials, forcing her craftsmen will be difficult. She says that reworking mithril in such a short time is simply impossible. She reveals the magic of mithril and explains why it is so hard to forge. Dwarven masters with their special gifts process mithril much better. She proposes a plan. If they focus only on mithril, they can manage in 6 months. They understand, even this plan will demand incredible sacrifices from the craftsmen. Recalling her father's words, she claps her hands and finally makes a decision. Resolutely, with one firm gesture, she agrees to the king's difficult request. The king and his advisor clearly sighed with relief. She suddenly agreed. Heidi smiles, assuring them that a dwarf's word is their bond. She remembers the last war and says that this task is nothing compared to those past trials. The grateful king offers her, besides payment, any reward she desires. He smiles and promises to fulfill any wish within his royal power. Heidi smiles slyly, testing the limits of the king's generous offer. Her advisor is worried because she is playing with fate, but she is confident she is doing the right thing. The king accepts her challenge, and the two leaders exchange a knowing look. Heidi makes an unexpected request to taste the best steak in the kingdom. Her advisor is stunned. She chose tasty steak instead of even more gold. Tiny, radiant with joy, Heidi exclaims that for a dwarf's sake is the water of life. The king smoothed his mustache and thoughtfully pondered her unusual request. She challenges him to prepare a drink better than the famous dwarven ale. The king reflects on her request and searches his memory for a trace of that legendary dream. Heidi laughs, confidently believing that no drink can simply be better. The king's face became serious when he said that such a drink really exists. The dwarves were stunned. They could not believe that a better drink could exist. Their surprise instantly turns into curiosity, distrust, and wild admiration. The king asks if she has heard about the Third Institute of Gift Research in the capital. He says that a recent report from his director mentioned something incredible. The king spoke about a new beer, the Heavenly Nectar from Data Sujigoba. He called it Nadate Sujisoba, a name the Grand Duchess did not know. She burst out laughing, convinced that their beer was better than any humans. But the king's face was a stone mask, his expression extremely serious. He looked at her without averting his eyes, and his gaze lived a deep, unwavering confidence. Her laughter died out when she suddenly felt as if she had been struck. He was not joking. "Prepare the horses," she thundered, demanding to set off for Elville immediately. The new arrival was about to disturb the peace of the old capital, Elville. By the city gates, the guard waved his hand and let a modest wooden cart pass. The driver thanked him. Everything went simply and without incident. Suddenly, the guards raised their heads. A strange, distant sound alerted them. One asked what was wrong, and another noticed the noise was getting louder. Their faces contorted in shock as the rumble grew ever louder. The gnome cavalry burst into the city, a storm of hooves and fury. "Tell Heisen," she growled, "that Heidi Whiterdegato has come to drink." In the great castle, Marquis Alville awaited his unexpected guest. He angrily grumbled to Adamant that one day was not enough to prepare the reception. Heidi entered laughing and told Heisen to be a more attentive host. Alville noted no gnome could resist the temptation of delicious steak. She mocked the spoiled courtiers who did nothing for their people. "I will wear a veil," she cut in, wondering how her vulgar language would pass among the aristocracy. She was glad that the fawning aristocrats were not nearby. Alville considered this audacious. Leaning closer, she sharply remarked that he was too gentle to his own detriment. She knew that he never got tired, and that, it seemed, irritated him even more. "And most importantly, Heisen," she began, "you are hiding a special stranger within yourself." She knew his name, Yukido, a man from Earth who served incredibly delicious drinks. Alville confirmed that Yukido was under protection, but continued to serve customers without prejudice. He sighed and she asked, "What did you want to talk about?" Alville decisively announced that he would allow her to drink beer at Nandai Tsujisoba. A letter from his brother had already informed him about the unusual desire. Excited, she asked if her devoted servants could join the tasting. She teased him, saying such solemn, noble words did not suit him at all. When Alville opened the shop, the gnomes simply froze and could not believe their eyes. The Grand Duchess froze in complete shock at the supernatural spectacle. She watched with admiration. The walls were made of flawless practical glass. In the display case lay exquisite models of dishes, created with impossible skill. Inside, the radiant interior and impeccable furniture were beyond her imagination. Alville will turn to her with a sly smile and ask about her impressions. Frozen without words, she could not help but admit, this was truly something special. Alville told her about the glass towers in the world of Yukatos, reaching up to the very sky. She grabbed him, screaming and not believing in those impossible structures. "You are a fool," she thought, marveling at how advanced this earth really was. Alville hurried them, explaining that he had rented the shop for only an hour. Anxiety surged over her again. "Yes, beer," she exclaimed. With a quiet hiss, the strange entrance began to open before them. The gnomes entered. Perfect astonishment froze on their faces. Every dwarf from the very duchess to her people was completely enchanted. She looked around wildly, desperately searching for the magical device that opened the door. The servant pointed to a tiny, inconspicuous sensor attached above the frame. Inside, Luch and Chap warmly welcomed the honored guest. I will be able to sincerely apologize to the staff for their sudden and noisy appearance. She scanned the room with her eyes, searching for the dark-haired stranger described by the king. Lucia explained that the manager was in the kitchen preparing for their party. As she led them to the table, she noticed it is sober establishments that attract avid drunkards. Heidi sat down and her face frowned because of the wooden seat. But in a moment her face lit up with surprised joy. She lifted the soft cushion and beamed with joy. Now her bottom would not hurt. Vale ordered 4 beers, but Heidi insisted that gnomes drink only water. Ludia smiled brightly, responding to the specific request of the Grand Duchess. She passed the order to the kitchen, 4 beers for the party. Alvil glanced toward the kitchen and realized this was truly the stranger. Heidi asked why he wasn't drinking, but Elvale simply replied that he would abstain. He had a job, but she said with a sneer, dwarves drink whenever they feel like it. No sooner had Albel begun explaining their customs than Luth returned with drinks. When Luria served the beer, Heidi's eyes widened in surprise. She placed a glass of water next to the majestic mug of beer. "What kind of jockey is this?" she stammered, fascinated by the glass vessel. She noticed that, like the door, the glass was flawless and completely uniform. This could only be the work of a master who worked with advanced forms. She looked closely at the beer. It looked like ale, but was completely different. The golden liquid shone crystal clear, not a hint of sediment. Smooth foam and incredible clarity unlike anything else. She had never seen anything like it before. She gripped the handle, her heart beating with full confidence in its taste. The first sip passed through her like a blow. Wow, how cold it is. The entire drink was cold as ice, an incredible luxury. A wide, delighted smile of pure satisfaction spread across her face. Without hesitation for a moment, she threw back the heavy mug. With uncontrollable excitement, she began to gulp down the otherworldly beer. Her followers picked up her example. Everyone drank with the same zeal. With a loud bang, she slammed the empty mug on the table. "Puff," she exclaimed loudly, "that was simply incredibly tasty." She accusatorily pointed a finger at Elvil and demanded to know what it was. If this is sake, then what have they been drinking all their lives? Her people burst into praise, proclaiming it much better than their beer. Elvil smiled slyly and asked if she admitted defeat. Blushing, she agreed. She thought to herself, since both are malt beverages, her own beer can be made better. There must definitely be a way to make their ale even tastier. Here it is. She snapped her fingers and suddenly understood. "We will chill it." She impatiently shouted to Ludia, ordering 1 more for everyone. Then she asked for advice on what to eat it with. She was sure that would be tasty too. Lucia paused for a moment before recommending spicy curry with rice. Heidi smiled and agreed. Spicy curry would perfectly match the refreshing beer. But Elvale decided to order tempraso for himself. The staff passed the large order to the kitchen, and Yukito nodded, confirming it. Heidi called Alvil. He turned around to find out what she wanted. She told him to convey to the king that she would now gladly fulfill his request. He asked why she wouldn't tell him herself, but she simply didn't want to. Now she had more important matters, and she passionately wanted to do them immediately. Her new mission is to make their beer better, using everything she learned today. It may take a lifetime, but she could not contain her burning passion. Grand Duchess Heidi smiles, confident that after this story her gnomes will burn with passion. Marquil V looks at her and notices her new, passionate motivation. Heidi boasts about the future of her domain and Alvil teases her, asking if she will find a purpose. The gnomes roar with delight and insist that curry and beer are the perfect pair. The caption reveals that each gnome swallows 5 large mugs of beer in just 1 hour. The scene shifts to the harsh Dagato Mountains, where at this moment a dragon is being finished off. A lone swordsman in white robes calmly faces a huge, roaring beast. Deep in the dungeon among the rubble lies a huge, cracked dragon egg. The swordsman Duke Sasaki Kyuli notes that a lizard of such size is a real spectacle. The leg of a colossal dragon fell to the ground with such force that the earth itself trembled. The young traveler shouts loudly to the old man, "Run, that beast is too strong." Duke Sasaki calmly raised his sword and said he was starting. With one smooth motion, Sasaki's blade cleanly severs the massive dragon's arm. The severed limb fell to the ground with a heavy crash and the beast's attack stopped. Sasaki looked with disappointment. The opponent turned out to be too weak to be a challenge. The traveler realized he was seeing the legendary great swordsman Duke Sasaki. On Sasaki's face was a frozen expression like that of a confident demon of battle. In a flashback, we see a younger Sasaki. He comes from the small principality of Fram. He stands before a tomb in the vassal state of Ardud. Here is the grave of his ancestor, the foreigner Kajiro Sasaki, who defeated Surtur. Kajiro was a legendary swordsman who forged his path alone, without any gift. In childhood, Sasaki playfully declared himself Kodero and was ready to challenge the giant Surtur. He and his friend are shown in a fiery duel with wooden swords. Having defeated his friend, young Sasaki stands with a victorious smile over the fallen enemy. He proudly believed that his ancestor was stronger than the famous rival Musashi. Friends cheer him on, shouting how cool his ancestor Kojiro is. However, the true divine gift of young Sasaki actually lay in blacksmithing. His elder brother, the heir, carries within him the mighty gift of a great hero. His parents gently told him, "Don't worry, become a blacksmith." But Sasaki insisted. If Kujiro became the strongest without a gift, then he could too. Thus, when he was only 15, he set out from home with only one sword. He wandered the land, fought at night, and prowled dungeons to hone his skills. Although he was often defeated, he gritted his teeth and swore he would win next time. He clenched his fist. He was driven by an insatiable desire to become even stronger. For 30 years he fought and became a legend until the Black Dragon defeated him. Now he wanders the dark, unfamiliar streets of the Night City. He sits alone, pondering where to find a truly worthy opponent. He eavesdrops as the townspeople whisper about a person who truly holds power in the city. Everyone talks about Ludia, the dungeon explorer of Alvel, who has the gift of the Sword King. Seeking a challenge, he immediately heads to the Alvel Dungeon Explorers Guild. The receptionist smiles and informs him that Lucia Selen is already retired. He demands to know where she is now, and the receptionist only guesses that she is at work. He is stunned. The Sword King works in a simple cafeteria. The shock was so strong that his stomach loudly emitted an embarrassing sound. Broken and exhausted, he decides to take a short nap. After all, it is already daytime. He looks at the old royal castle and notices that since the last time he saw it, it has been restored. Once this view ignited inspiration in him, but now he feels nothing at all. Suddenly, his eyes widen. He notices something that absolutely should not be there. He freezes, staring at Nodaitsuja Soba, a modern shop built into the old castle wall. He is completely confused, muttering to himself, "What is this?" He guesses it is a restaurant and asks himself with surprise, how did it cut through that thick castle wall? Despite the strange appearance, he sees that it is teeming with life. He raises his gaze to the sign. Its bold letters clearly spell, Nadaitsuja Soba. He immediately recognizes these characters. They remind him of those in the diary of his ancestor Kajiro. A small chibi version of young Sasaki appears, unable to read the text. He wonders if the owner is also a foreigner from Henimoto and decides to go inside. The doors slid open by themselves, a shockingly luxurious device for an ordinary entrance. Inside, he sees two boys who are cheerfully talking to each other. He watches in fascination an unusual sight, common people and nobility peacefully eating together. He notices an elf behind the counter. He is eating with an unexpectedly beastly appetite. The cheerful waitress Lucia approaches him with a tray and a sincere, radiant greeting. She explains that the shop is very crowded right now and sincerely apologizes for the wait. She gestured, inviting him to sit at the bar counter, and he sat down. He sits next to the elf Syria, who calmly enjoys her food. He picks up a smooth laminated card and immediately recognizes it as a menu. He looks inside and his eyes widen in complete confusion. He tensely tries to decipher the pictures of noodles, rice, and a drink called beer. Lucio returned with a shining smile and placed a glass of water in front of him. She explains water is free and they refill it if you ask. He looks, not believing his eyes, at the perfectly formed ice cubes clinking in his glass. He thinks that making ice with magic and giving it away for free is simply incredible. He carefully raises the glass to his lips and takes a barely noticeable sip. He is captivated by the exquisite taste, pure and refreshing, like meltwater. The taste of the water is so wonderful that he decided, the food must also be worth the wait. He looks over the menu again, thinking that cold soba would be just the thing for the summer heat. He sees 4 completely different options and, confusedly, does not know which to choose. Elf Tisserie returns to him and gently asks if he is having trouble deciding. She smiles warmly and correctly guesses that he is visiting Nandaitsuja Soba for the first time. He looks at her, puzzled, repeating the unfamiliar name of the restaurant. She giggles. His expression shows that he is a newcomer. She correctly guessed that he was struggling, not knowing what to order from the menu. He looks at her intently and asks how she could have known about all this. She playfully waved her finger and explained that one needs to start with the basics of the restaurant. He agrees, understanding the fundamentals is really important, and makes his choice. He raises his hand towards Lucia and politely says he is ready to place an order. He points to the menu, ordering something more restrained, and Luca confirms his choice. Lucia shouted one more isabu, and the guys in the kitchen responded. While waiting, Sasaki imagines what this mysterious morisoba will be like. A dish is brought to the table, a flawless plate of noodles and a small bowl of dipping sauce. He ran his hand over his chin and thoughtfully considers how to properly eat the noodles separated in the soup. Tesseria leans over and explains that he should dip a portion of noodles into the soup. He is impressed that she is teaching him, and she proudly calls herself a workshop master. She explains that finely chopped green onion nagangi adds a piquant spiciness to the dish. Then she describes the powerful green wasabi paste, a condiment that brings tears to the eyes. She advises him to add it little by little, and he sincerely thanks her for the good advice. All this chatter made him hungry for more soba, so Tesseria orders a large portion. He asks if she is still eating, and she says she must finish eating before the next dish is brought. Sasaki reaches out and pulls a pair of disposable chopsticks from a container on the counter. With a sharp crack, he focusedly and precisely breaks the wooden kitchen utensils. He clumsily tries to pick up the noodles, and his face is tense from intense concentration. Duke Sasaki lifts the morisoba noodles, his gaze sharp and analytical. He dips the cold noodles into the dark, aromatic sauce. Loudly slurping, he takes his first fateful bite of soba. His eye opens wide in complete shock at the incredible, unfamiliar taste. The flavor seems to transport him to a fishing village. He recognizes the taste of the sea. He closes his eyes, savoring the unique aroma, and with a smile says that it is delicious. He lifts another bundle of perfectly arranged soba to eat. The even noodles provide a wonderful texture and slide easily down the throat. Like one who also wields a blade, he sincerely respects the skill of the chef. It would be a true disrespect not to eat such a luxurious dish to the last crumb. Then he dares to try adding finely chopped green onion to the sauce. He dips the noodles again. This time they are covered with fresh onion. He takes another bite, loudly slurping, enjoying the new combination of flavors. He exclaims enthusiastically that the crispy texture and spicy notes are simply the perfect complement. His face becomes stone-like as he reaches for the last mysterious seasoning. He focuses and prepares to try wasabi, the last flavor remaining. Suddenly he remembers Siria's warning, this spice will make him cry. With a decisive movement, he throws a piece of wasabi into the sauce. The soup is now rich. He wonders if he was too hasty. No, he decides that I need to be brave and bites off a large piece. A sharp hit of spices passed through him, a shocking sensation. He leaned back in the chair, completely stunned by the power of wasabi. My nose, he thinks, clutching his face as hot steam hits. An extremely pungent smell chokes him, tears well up in his eyes, and he struggles. He abruptly grabs a glass of ice water, seeking relief. Breathing deeply, he admitted that he was not ready for this at all. This time he much more carefully dips the noodles into the sauce. He gently bites, face calm, gaze now focused. The refreshing aroma and barely noticeable spiciness transport him to a peaceful peak. He, closing his eyes, savors the perfect balance of flavors. The taste of soba is as if from another world. It is simply called delicious. And now he understands, this is the main flavor of this unique store. He pondered, it has been a long time since he ate anything so tasty. Throughout his harsh life, he never thought about food. For 30 years he followed only strength. His whole life was devoted to honing the art of swordsmanship. He remembered the time when simple sword swings brought joy. He is tormented by the choice, to open a dojo or live peacefully by the sea. He sighs quietly, reflecting on the newly found path. The deity wonders if the Duke can change, considering his miserable past. He imagines the staff leaving, and Lucia remaining with a warm smile. Later that night, the crescent moon hung in the starry sky. Yukito savors the beer and says that it is the perfect end to a long day. He sighs happily and exclaims how tasty and refreshing this beer is. Lydia, smiling, says how busy they have been and suggests adding sake to the menu. Suddenly, a message appeared before the surprised Yukito, level up. Next, dishes appear: meat soba and appetizing soba with croquette. He raises his glass, knowing that croquette soba will go perfectly with the beer. He sees meat soba is now available both hot and cold. Wonderful, he thought to himself, and a confident smile played on his face. They write that it is now a hot and stuffy summer in Arlie. New meat soba, which adds endurance, are shown in the finest details. Finally, he remembered, cold meat when he was sober was his favorite dish. Since the shop first opened its doors, the menu has noticeably expanded. He is proud of his team, but knows that they are becoming too busy. He gradually realizes that they desperately lack staff. He asks himself if he can find one or two more workers. A loud rumble bursts from the empty stomach of the hungry girl. Tears ran down her face, and she exclaimed that she was starving to death. The next morning, the sun rises over the city of Alville. He finally decides to talk to an employee during their morning breakfast. He decides to ignite a fire in them so they will get up and handle another stressful day. Ludian Chap came and cheerfully greeted him with several good mornings. He serves their special staff dish, croquette soba and devil's onigiri. They are on cloud 9. They have never tried any of these new dishes before. He passionately explains his special recipe for delicious devil's onigiri. They happily joined their palms together and started eating. Chap closes his eyes and takes the first bite of onigiri. He probably thought to himself how well everything turned out. Ludia and Chap exclaim excitedly, onigirias are incredibly tasty. Chap just confidently says that this is the best, and at that moment a hand appears on the glass. The girl's stomach again emits a loud, desperate grumble. She presses her face to the door and whispers that she is hungry. With a soft click, the automatic door lock opened. The door quietly opened and the mysterious girl entered. Lucia addresses her colleagues and says, "I need to consult with you." Her stomach growled loudly again, demanding food. Three workers sharply turned around, surprised by the sudden arrival. She points with a trembling finger at the triangular dish and says that it looks appetizing. The boy said aloud embarrassedly, "Did he forget to lock the door?" It turned out that the girl is a representative of the demon race. The demon race is very diverse. There are goblins and slimes here. The strongest demons, dragonids, rule over the kingdom of Sankaku. The king enthusiastically explains the tradition that awaits royal children at 100 years. This is how the first demon king learned and built their nation. The father sincerely wishes Princess Sharon a happy 100th birthday. He tells her that now it is her turn to undergo training. She protests, saying that being the youngest, this training is useless for her. Her father bares sharp teeth. He has already decided everything. In one word, go Zirenge, she pushed her daughter. The mighty door slammed shut with a bang, sealing her fate and his warning. She flies into the void, unable to believe she was expelled. Suddenly it turns out that her gift was unlocked, and the symbol of this becomes a key. This allows her to open any lock, a skill more fitting for a thief. She screams in panic that she could never be a criminal. She also categorically refuses to become a dungeon explorer and fight monsters. They look like monsters, but in reality the demon race does not take pleasure in killings. But she will still have to find a way to feed herself. Suddenly she remembered, maybe in another country she has an acquaintance. She recalls her older brother Duolong. He also set out on his journey. The only thread leading her forward was a letter from her brother written 4 years ago. He honed his skills in the lands of men in the cathedral kingdom of Du Nort. If I manage to meet Duolan, she thought, everything will be fine. But without money, she had to sleep in the tree crowns for now. Lonely birds soared in the sky, like a mirror of her own flight. The spoiled princess found no peace on the hard, creaking branches. A spider descending made her burst out in frightened screams. From her empty stomach came a deep, dull rumble. The swift river beckoned. It promised food. She pulled out a huge fish and looked confused. She had no idea how to cook it. She tried to cook it with the pitiful breath of a dragon. It was a complete failure. The fish was still completely raw. She could no longer live like this. She had to find her brother. In 2 weeks, she finally reached the city of Elvio. She found the tavern that her brother mentioned in the letter. The landlady asked if she was also a demon, like the man she had seen. But she was told that Duolan had left for another country a year ago. Chorn desperately asked where he had gone, but the woman did not know. Her long-term plan to rely completely on her brother fell apart. The landlady asked if the young demon had a place to stay. Sharon had to admit she did not have a single penny. She wandered the empty streets, her stomach twisting from hunger. In the morning, she had only one thing: neatness. How will she even endure this torment for 100 years? Tears well up. In her room, she longs for her magnificent palace. She so lacked a clean bed and luxurious silk clothes. She dreamed of a luxurious banquet, nothing like burnt half-raw fish. In the palace, she had everything and she didn't even have to do anything. But crying, she gradually felt a deep realization come to her. All her luxurious life was paid for by the taxes of her people. The servants cared for her only because she was of royal blood. Finally, she understood that this life could not be taken for granted. If not for the title, she would have had nothing of it at all. A quiet wave of enlightenment washed over the disgraced princess. She cried because she knew this journey was meant to teach her gratitude and duty. Her revelation was interrupted by another sharp hunger pang. Clenching her fist, she decided to find herself a place to live and work somewhere. She worked tirelessly and was grateful even for the simplest dish. Her resolute "I will do everything in my power" echoed over the rooftops of the city. The next morning she stood on the street, exhausted but determined. Her gaze caught on a strange structure embedded in the castle wall. She, staring at the unfamiliar structure, wondered, what is this? She looked admiringly at the transparent wall's perfect glass, which she had never seen before. Through the transparent window, she saw several people sitting inside. Her gaze was fixed on that scene, and admiration played on her face. She looked at the strange triangular dish and could not understand if it was even edible. What could this be? She whispered, and her curiosity was instantly awakened. She watched as the employees Yukido, Lucia, and Chap ate together. She stood outside, a solitary figure watching the warm scene inside. The three of them smiled and laughed, enjoying the food. How nice, she thought admiringly, it looked so delicious. This place reminded her of her native family, who shared joyful lunches together. In the darkness, a powerful thought was born: me too. Her gaze sharpened and a sudden deep desire seized her. With a soft click, she used her gift to open doors. So I want to go in there, she decided, and her thought was unwavering. The automatic doors opened softly and warmly with a quiet hiss. She stepped over the threshold with a single decisive step. She timidly approached the workers and asked if she could talk with them. She raised her eyes to them. Her voice was a barely audible whisper, but full of hope. She said that the triangular food they were eating looked very tasty. 3 employees froze at her sudden request. She pointed at the onigiri and kept repeating how delicious it was. Chapin and Ludia exchanged embarrassed glances. They didn't know what to do. You could have guessed what she was pointing at just by picking up one. He asked if she meant onigiri, a name she had never heard before. He explained what it was called and kindly offered her one. His generosity stunned her. She couldn't believe it and asked if it was really allowed. They could just wait, and a gentle smile appeared on his face. With tears in her eyes, she admitted that she had no money to repay him. She knew this was a restaurant, so you can't just eat here for free. He smiled warmly and told her not to worry about the money. He gently slid the plate closer and gestured, encouraging her to eat. At that moment, her stomach growled loudly and desperately. She finally nodded with tears of gratitude and accepted his offer. She held the onigiri with both hands as if it were a treasure. She greedily bit off a huge piece, and her eyes closed in bliss. A firework of pure flavor exploded in her imagination. She exclaimed, "Wow," a sound of pure, unrestrained bliss. She savored the complex taste of sweet grain and spicy seasoning. The crispy texture and rich taste of the oil were a real revelation. Beneath it all was the unmistakable, temptingly salty smell of the sea. Delicious, she thought, and her hand reached for the sky. She felt as if she were floating on a lotus of perfect taste. Tears of pure joy streamed down her face as she whispered that word. Cheb smiled, noticing that she was hungry, and offered her her own. Lucius said that she would bring water so that the princess would not suffocate. You can suggest preparing soba with croquette for her and say that she can eat more. She held the second onigiri. Her face was full of distrust. She could not even imagine what a soba croquette is like. But in such a warm place, she was sure it must be tasty. Hunger and emotions overwhelmed her. She groaned and began to choke on the rice. Her new friends instantly plunged into funny panic and began to call for water. Lucia rushed to her, helped her drink, and told her not to hurry. You all could quickly rush there to make sure she is okay. She smiled slightly gratefully, tightly clutching the glass of water. Surrounded by them, she felt a warmth she had not known for a long time. The sun was dazzlingly shining on the external sign, "No Dai to Soba." You could have put your hands together for him when he finished his meal. After eating, she shyly asked what the word "gacha suzama" means. With folded palms, Yukido explains what the prayer before a meal means. Chorin repeats these words, basking in the warm smiles of her new friends. Then she awkwardly apologized to Yukido for entering his shop without an invitation. She solemnly introduces herself, Sharon, the 8th princess of Senkoku. The servants froze in surprise, not understanding why the royal family was so ragged and hungry. She explains that it is a royal tradition, a difficult trial she will have to undergo. They listen, stunned by the very idea of a century-long educational journey abroad. The three silently digested this incredible information. You could be sure of her age. She explains that the dragonids live for 1,000 years. He recoiled when he realized what her age meant in human terms. He sees a small child thrown into the world all alone. He is furious that her family could have at least given some money for the journey. Chap carefully examines his situation and looks for a practical way out. He asks if she could survive if she became a dungeon explorer. Only hints plunge them into a state of absolute horror. She insists that she hates fighting monsters and even watching others do it. Lucia recalls that demons were created to be companions of the gods. Chap suddenly realizes that he has actually never seen a demon in a dungeon. Then he, somewhat hesitantly, asks if she could work as a mercenary. The idea is even worse. She firmly states that she hates killing people. Yukido nods. He fully understands her gentle, peace-loving nature. He quietly thinks that hating to fight is a completely natural feeling. He waved his hand at Chap's question and said that it was just his chatter. He gently asked Shore what she had decided to do now. She sincerely admits she doesn't know because she has never worked in her life. Tears well up in her eyes as she stands before the frightening century-long journey. Her strength gives little when the most essential survival skills are lacking. Lucia looks at Yukido with a pleading gaze, asking him to help the lost princess. You can politely address the girl, gently calling her shower in Sean's presence. He threw out the idea, what if she goes to work in their shop? Charn is completely stunned by the unexpected job offer. Chap and Ludio were wildly happy and enthusiastically praised the brilliant idea of their managers. Yukido explains that this is the perfect option. It solves both problems. He perfectly understands. You don't just go to the Grand Duke about a foreign princess. He officially offers her to become a live-in employee. He promises a decent salary and, most importantly, food 3 times a day. The offer hangs in the air, the only beacon of hope for her. She asks in a trembling voice if she can really stay. The employees look at her with a smile and offer her a place among them. She asks if he will feed her again at Giri, and he promises that he will. He whispered to her, "If this is exactly what you want, I will do it." Simple kindness to prepare exactly what she wants to eat moves her to tears. He exclaims that this is the true spirit of Nidaitsuga Soba. Overwhelmed with gratitude, she agrees to work, tears of joy rolling down her cheeks. She bowed to the floor, begging them to allow her to work here. Yukito smiled warmly and solemnly welcomed her to the natty Tsujisoba team. He introduces himself, Yukito Hatsushiro store manager. Ludius Selen happily greets his new colleague. Chap added that he is also a newcomer so they can learn together. Chorin felt embarrassed but feels as if she has finally found her family. She thinks about their kindness and vows to work tirelessly for them. 5 days later, Shorn is already getting used to her new life in the store. While cleaning, she accidentally broke a plate and began to apologize frantically. She feels clumsy and useless, her eyes filling with tears of disappointment. Chep gently comforts her, everyone breaks plates from time to time. Yukito adds that this is simply proof she is truly working hard. He thanks her for washing the dishes, and she blushes with pride. She thinks that working is hard, but here she is truly happy. Yukado reminds her his gift will not let bad people into the shop. She knows that work is not always fun, but something smells simply wonderful. She inhales an appetizing aroma comes from the kitchen. The staff lunches she prepares have become the brightest moment of her long days. She warmly remembers the little devils on Jieri who started her new life. Thanks to Yuki 2's cooking, she simply fell head over heels in love with rice. For today's staff lunch, she asked for something special. Yukino shouts that her yakis on Jieri are ready for a break. She stands in a funny, straight attention, frozen with pure, genuine admiration. She eagerly says that she has been waiting for this all day. He warns her, be careful, it just came off the grill and is still very hot. 2 perfectly toasted, shiny rice balls appeared on the plate. She folds her palms together, ready to enjoy her special dish. She enthusiastically bites into a huge piece of crispy spiciness on the jury. A satisfying crunch echoes as she sinks her teeth into the toasted crust. Her eyes open wide with surprise and delight at this amazing new texture. Suddenly she realizes the toasted rice becomes harder and completely different. Pure bliss blooms on her face as she happily chooses. The sweetness of the rice gently blends with the appetizing aroma of toasted soy sauce. She enjoys an incredibly delicious taste. This dish perfectly gives comfort. She thoughtfully says to herself, onigiri still remains onigiri, even when it is brushed with soy sauce and toasted to perfection. She is impressed, even such a bold change did not affect its true essence. One perfectly grilled onigiri sat lonely on the plate. She licks her sticky fingers and says how delicious it was. Every year, only one thing dear to the heart remains on her plate. She reaches for it, and at that moment, Lucia rushes with a tray of plates. With a bright smile, she tells Sharon to wait just a moment. She approaches with courage and a ladle, a brilliant idea in her head. She points with her hand to the last grilled onigiri on the plate. She offers a special way to finish the meal, dashi cheizuk. For the young princess, this name was completely new and confused her. You can learn dashi is a rich aromatic broth, the base of their soba. Lucia orders her to put the last onigiri in an empty bowl. Sharon carefully places the rice ball right in the center of the bowl. Luder explains that now he will pour hot broth over it. She gently ladles steaming, fragrant dashi and carefully pours it over the onigiri. As the final perfect touch, she sprinkles the dish with green onions. On Shorin's face is a mask of sincere admiration and eager anticipation. The finished dashi chizuk enchants with simplicity, sophistication, and incredible appeal. Shorin admiringly gazes at the golden broth and the bright green specks of onion. Lucia's hands are like a pair of chopsticks for the last comforting dish. Lucia, with a gentle smile, shows Shorin how to enjoy the rest of her food. She assures the princess that it will be incredibly tasty, and in reward hears a sincere thank you. Shorin emotionally thinks about Lucia's kindness and feels as if she is her older sister. She feels that everyone in the shop is kind, and she has already come to love this new family. A soothing warmth fills her chest, a feeling she has never known before. She remembers that cold palace and suddenly realizes that she is truly happy now working here. Filled with new determination, she again pays attention to that special dish. The steaming bowl of dashichezuk seemed to promise to warm her body and soul. She raises the bowl to her lips and gently inhales the fragrant warm steam. The tasty broth touches her lips, a gentle, soothing sensation. This flavor is strangely nostalgic, as if transporting her to a quiet, warm seashore. Lucia gently reminds her to break the onigiri while she eats. Her chopsticks pressed into the bowl of rice and crumbled it right into the aromatic broth. She impatiently brings a spoonful of the warm, delicious mixture to her mouth. Her eyes open wide in complete astonishment as the incredible new flavor explodes. This deep taste leaves her speechless and completely filled with sincere admiration. A wave of bliss washed over her, and she exclaimed that it was simply incredibly delicious. Humidity, not a drop remains of that wonderful dish. She squeezes the empty bowl, overwhelmed with deep gratitude and excitement. Tears of joy streamed down her face, and a smile of pure satisfaction played on her lips. She sighs deeply and contentedly, placing the perfectly empty bowl down. A blissful, happy smile blooms on her face. She feels completely full. She enthusiastically praises the dish and says it is much tastier than the dishes of the royal palace. She is delighted how Yukito can create such dishes from simple, ordinary ingredients. She would very much like to stay here for all 100 years of her training. But she remembers that people do not live long and their farewell will come too soon. The thought that she might lose her new family floods her with another wave of tears. That is why she decides to help them with all her strength. Far to the northwest, the distant and sacred Ishitaka Mountains rise sharply. Elderly pilgrims held their breath, gazing at the holy mountain, grateful that they had finally arrived. One woman cries with joy, happy that she was able to reach the holy place. A local man warns them that this mountain ridge is a forbidden zone. He explains that the god guardian still dwells on the sacred mountain. The sacred keeper is an elf who lives and works on this land. Taylor Vishtaka thoughtfully reflects on how important the mountains are to his elves. There is a hidden swamp on the mountain, seething with powerful magical energy. Here the elves have built a small settlement and survive by exploring the local dungeons. There is another important part of their life on the mountain. He gathers potatoes, a local delicacy that miraculously grows on this exhausted, almost bare land. He carries his harvest back, making his way through the modest rural settlement of Elventree. Suddenly, something descending from the sky caught his attention. The great bird suddenly swooped down and gracefully perched on his outstretched bandaged arm. On his head, a magical symbol brightly flickers, the sign of the gift of taming. This magical gift grants its owner the ability to command and use animals. This creature is a messenger bird, carrying an important letter in its beak. Theo carefully unties the scroll, wondering who could have sent this letter. He began reading the letter, and his face instantly became serious and worried. The letter is from his aunt. She asks if he and everyone else are okay. She writes she has an important matter to discuss. It concerns a girl named Assyria. Assyria is his cousin from the Ibaraki forest and also his fiancée. He is shocked reading that she has not written home for 10 years. The worried aunt asked him to go and see how she is feeling. He hesitated before the long journey, but he knew he must set out. He knows this will not last long. He has a unique gift of flight magic. This rare gift allows him to travel as if roads and terrain do not exist for him. Before setting out on a journey, he goes to talk to his father. Although his father was sick and completely unable to go, he promised to take care of the fields. Theo Object says that his father is bedridden due to severe back pain. His mother died 20 years ago, and only he and his father remain. Don't worry, Theo, his father reassures, because he has already anticipated this very situation. He shows an exquisite bottle, a treasure he had kept hidden. Theo stared in confusion and asked his father what this strange bottle was. With a determined look, his father pronounced its name, Panacea. Theo exclaims in disbelief. He cannot believe he is seeing a panacea. It is a legendary potion that no one can create, but which cures any disease. His father explains that Grandpa Theo came across this while exploring the dungeons. Theo had heard rumors about it, but did not believe that his father could have such a thing. He reserved it for Amma, his wife, but it was useless. The panacea is a powerful potion, but even it cannot bring the dead back to life. He firmly says that he will use it right now so that Theo does not worry. Theo was moved to tears by his father's selfless act. The father tells him to go. After all, Tesseria is his fiancée. The old elf carefully uncorks the precious bottle, preparing to drink the potion. He drinks the contents of the legendary life-changing panacea in one gulp. He immediately spits it out, shouting that the taste is absolutely disgusting. With a grateful smile, Theo thanks his father and prepares to set off. A few days later, Tao steps into the magnificent royal capital. He carefully checks the letter. It confirms that Tesseria works at the Third Research Institute. He decides to ask for directions at the royal castle, a government building. But near the main gates, the royal guards rudely push them away. He begs, but the guards do not let the elf in. At that moment, they are interrupted by the knock of an approaching horse-drawn carriage. In despair, Theo shouted, asking if there is an elf named Assyria here. A nobleman gets out of the carriage, and the name Tesseria immediately catches his attention. This is Marquis Canis. He asks if Theo is connected to Tesseria. Theo was confused and asked the man, "Who are you and how do you know me?" The Marquis says he is a nobleman and that Tesseria once saved his life. Theo confidently confirms that she arrived in Tesseria at the Research Institute. Suddenly, Marcus looks nervous. A drop of sweat appears on his forehead. He sadly says that it's a pity that Theo has made this whole journey. Tesseria is not here. She is in Alvali on an investigation. Feeling that he is being led by the nose, Theo flies away in despair. After a few days, his journey finally brings him to the old capital. The bright, beautiful streets of the human city captivated him. He is sure elves are rare, so finding her will be easy. With his heart in his throat, he approached a rough adventurer to ask him. He asked the man if he knew of any elf woman in the city. The man knows her, that big, greedy elf woman who is always in Sujabai. Theo froze at the description. Elves are known to be very picky eaters. He wonders if this is really Tesseria, but the man seems completely sure. Elf Theo curiously asks about a place called Soba, assuming it is some kind of snack bar. A local adventurer asks if Theo is new, and the elf child confirms with a slight nod. Yes, he is new. The man smiled slyly and said, "No wonder I hadn't heard." He enthusiastically says that Suja Soba is the most popular, liveliest snack bar in the city. He tells Theo to look for him, embedded in the old castle wall. Since elves are rare, he assumes that regular visitors to this place might know Theo's friend. Theo froze from the unexpectedly useful and so specific information. Politely bowing in gratitude, Theo watches as the friendly adventurer waves goodbye. With a new lead and a determined look, Theo decides to investigate the snack bar. He approaches and sees a huge noisy queue of various people in front of the shop. Blushing slightly in the cheeks, he confirms, this must be the famous Sujasoba. He notices how much this shop stands out just as that man enthusiastically described. Even to his rural eyes, this shop seemed extraordinarily strange for the city. His gaze suddenly sharpens through the window. He notices a familiar figure. He notices the elf behind the counter and with a pounding heart thinks, is this the very one he is looking for? Clenching his will into a fist, he prepares to enter the shop and confirm his suspicions. Resigned to the wait, he obediently stands at the end of the long winding queue. After 30 minutes his patience finally bore fruit. He reached the front. The door slides open. A voice from inside says, next customer. As he steps over the threshold, glide quietly and effortlessly closes behind him. The cutting-edge automatic door technology leaves the mountain elf completely stunned. Blushing, he tells himself, calm down, it's just some kind of urban magical thing. The demon princess Sharon, who is now a waitress, warmly and professionally greets him. He encouragingly patted the proud young waitress on the head for her greeting. Jorn explains the shop is so crowded that he will have to share. She points to the only free seat right next to another elf at the counter. Theo walks to the counter, not taking his eyes off the familiar figure. He smiles kindly and thanks the young waitress, and she blushes in response. He sees his friend Asaria receiving food, and her face instantly lights up. He watches in amazement as she slurps the noodles with unrestrained appetite. Her complete lack of traditional elven manners leaves him speechless and utterly confused. Asaria finally notices his attentive gaze and asks if she can help him find a seat. She gestures to the empty stool nearby, gently and politely inviting him to sit. When their eyes finally met, a sparkling moment of joyful recognition ignited between them. In a moment of joyful surprise, the two friends cheerfully called out to each other,